Good morning and welcome to our 76th weekly webcast. If this is the first time you're joining us, welcome. If you've been with us before, welcome back. And so the way the call works is I answer all questions you have. This is an AMA, which means ask me anything, kind of like Reddit. You can ask me business questions, career questions, personal questions, anything you want. And I answer the questions in the order in which I receive them. So if I miss your question or if I don't answer it properly, please put me on the spot because I want to humbly help and answer all questions you might have. And so this call ends in 3 hours. It ends at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And then for those of you in my MBA degree program, we'll have for MBA students only after hours. We'll have for MBA students only office hours starting at 11:15 a.m. today. And then we'll have one-on-one meetings for the MBA degree students this afternoon. And so I see Melody's on the call. Melody, welcome. And congratulations on getting that job. Very, very happy for you. That's awesome. It's awesome. Always great to see you. And the question is, I heard the news about the CEO of LinkedIn, Jeff. He is stepping down. What are your thoughts on the news? Why do you think he's stepping down? So the question is, why is the CEO of LinkedIn stepping down? So he's actually, I don't really know, but I know a lot of people that have worked for him and with him, like Matt Sonnenfeld, buddy of mine, who used to head up IR there for years. And everybody says great things about Jeff. He's a good dude. Everybody likes him a lot. So I'm not sure why. I'm actually surprised to hear that. But usually what happens is when a company gets acquired by another company, quite often the management team, you'll see a lot of people leave after a year. Now, the Microsoft acquisition of LinkedIn was several years ago, so I'm not sure what might have happened there. Maybe he joined a venture capital firm. Maybe he's doing something else. Maybe it's for personal reasons. I'm not sure, but I do know that he is very well liked by employees at LinkedIn. But thanks for sharing that with me. Appreciate it. Okay, next up, we've got, good morning, everyone. Hey, Jose. Good morning, Chris. Hope everything is going great on your end. It is, thank you. Today, I have a few questions from a friend that I'd like to ask, if that's okay with you. Yeah, absolutely. Go right ahead, please. The first one is, are there things you think you got in your MBA degree program that you would not be able to get anywhere else? Or actually, let me reread that because you're not asking about my program. You're saying, are there things you got in your MBA, I guess when I went to Columbia, that you would not be able to get anywhere else? Do you think your MBA got you networking opportunities that you wouldn't have gotten anywhere else? So I will say that doing an MBA kind of helped me to broaden my network because I met other people in my class from all over the world, which was helpful. However, had I known now what I knew back then, I probably would not have done it. It's expensive. It takes 2 years to complete. Think of the opportunity cost in terms of lost wages as well. Plus, I learned how to network myself the hard way, the school of hard knocks, so to speak. And I remember when I was working at Accenture back in the 90s, and I was a technology consultant. I liked it, but I wanted to go to Wall Street. And so I called up one or two investment banks, and one of them in particular, Morgan Stanley, said, don't even bother sending in your resume. I mean, it was HR. She was very polite. And I thought, well, goodness, if I want to get to Wall Street or change careers, I guess I have to do an MBA. And so I did an MBA. But I didn't really network that much before business school. And that's why I think I had to go to business school to change careers. I think you can network aggressively and not get an MBA and get the job of your dreams. That's right. So there's so many people that have networked and gotten a great job without even a high school education. So there's a lot of college dropouts as well that have gotten great jobs without graduating. And let me give you some examples of people that have gone from the mailroom to the CEO position in lots of companies. So you have the former president of Cosmopolitan magazine. She started in the mailroom. The same thing with the former CEO of Goldman Sachs for decades, Sidney Weinberg. He started in the mailroom. You've got Dick Grasso, who used to be the chairman and CEO of the New York Stock Exchange. He started in the mailroom. And so did so many other people. Barry Diller from Interactive, the former CEO and president of ESPN. The list goes on and on and on. David Geffen as well. And the reason why they became CEOs or very successful starting their own companies is because they kind of learned in the mailroom how to network. You know what I'm talking about. It might be the person, if you work in a big company, that stops by your cube, your office every day and says, top of the morning, here's your mail. Did you see the game last night? That sort of thing. They're great at networking, and they learn networking as well by starting in the mailroom. I'm not saying you have to start in the mailroom in general, but the point is that if you network a lot, you can get the job of your dreams and you can change careers. And so society is changing. If you look at Elon Musk, he doesn't care if you even have a high school degree. He'll hire you if you're money. The same thing with Google. You do not need a university degree to get a job at Google or IBM or Facebook or Wells Fargo and many, many other companies. Sure, getting a degree from a great school might get you an interview, maybe, but it's so hard. And even if you do, whenever you see somebody asking for resumes online and you want to apply for that job, just know that if you send your resume in, there's like a 1 in 1,000 chance you're going to get that job. Usually the person that gets that job is somebody that knows somebody at that company or networks a lot. And so I think a better way to get the job of your dreams is to network and to set up a lot of informational meetings with people that work at companies or in industries that you want to work at. And it's very easy to set up informational meetings. And to learn the entire methodology on how to do it, you can take my course called the Complete Job Course. It's on Udemy, and I have a lifetime money-back guarantee. I personally have a lifetime guarantee for you. Okay, it's 30 days money-back guarantee, but I'm so convinced you will get the job of your dreams by taking that course. Then I put my reputation and my money on the line. That course, again, it's on Udemy. It's called the Complete Job Course. I think it's about 12 hours long, and it teaches you how to create a great resume, a LinkedIn profile, and also how to network. So please check that out. And again, I guarantee success or your money back forever. Lifetime guarantee. And if you want, Jose, what you can do is have your friend go to my webpage and download my book for free on networking. So just go over here to Haroun Ventures, HAR. And then once you're on the homepage, what you can do is you can scroll down and get this book here for free. Yeah. So anyway, hopefully that's helpful. And if you have follow-up questions based on that or anything else, please let me know. And thanks as always. Okay. Next question is from Melody, pardon me. Melody is saying, Chris, why do you think Earth's Fair claimed bankruptcy? And then you wrote, I love shopping there. I don't really know. I actually don't know that brand. Excuse my ignorance. But I do know that the retail sector is really, really tough to compete in, especially if you're competing against Amazon. And one of the reasons why a lot of people are excited about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general is because if you transact with cryptocurrencies in a store, and there are some that take them, if you transact, the fee you pay is so tiny. It's way, way, way under 0.1%. However, if you pay with Visa, MasterCard, or American Express at a store, then the person that owns that store is losing 2 or 3% and sometimes more in fees they have to pay the credit card companies. And so Visa and MasterCard are lower rates, like 1, 2, or 3%. Amex can be higher than that. That's why a lot of people will say in stores, we don't take Amex. And so if you're a retail store and your profit margins are really, really low, like for everything you sell, you only make 1 or 2 or 3%, then if you collect credit cards or allow people to pay with credit cards, you might go bankrupt or your profit margins will be non-existent. And that's why a lot of people like to take cryptocurrencies. Not many take it yet, but a lot will in the future. And so the retail sector is really, really, really tough. A lot of retail stores go bankrupt, and a lot of retail stores go bankrupt because of inventory. And I've got this cartridge here. This is an interesting story. So I'm doing a case study in my MBA degree program on Atari. And in the early 1980s, E.T. was a very popular movie, obviously. And what happened was Atari made this game called E.T. in 1982. And I remember I was a kid. I was 10 at the time. And yeah, I'm dating myself. And my dad bought it for me for Christmas. And I was really excited. And it was the worst game ever. I mean, E.T. could only face one way. And if he wanted to get Reese's Pieces, I think it was, he had to walk backward. It was awful. It was terrible. And so what happened was Atari made too many of these things. And Atari went bankrupt. And they had to actually bury hundreds of thousands of copies of this thing in the desert. And so this one was excavated like a dinosaur bone, and I bought it online on eBay. But this destroyed the entire video game industry until Nintendo came out with the 8-bit around 1985 and revitalized the entire industry. All the other companies basically went belly up, like Intellivision, Atari with the 2600 here, and ColecoVision. Coleco, that stands for the Connecticut Leather Company. They all lost a fortune. So inventory destroyed that company. And if you're a retail store, if you have too much inventory, it can also destroy your company as well. And competing against Amazon is so hard. It really is tough. And Amazon kind of reminds me of Walmart back in the 1970s and 80s. And a lot of politicians don't like Walmart, just like they don't like Amazon today. I love Amazon as a customer. I love it. And as an investor for years and years and years, I've loved it. However, what Walmart did by offering EDLP, which means everyday low prices, is Walmart would locate in between 3 or 4 small towns in the United States. And what would happen is people would stop shopping at the mom and pop small stores in those 3 or 4 towns, and they just go to buy directly from Walmart. And then all those stores went out of business, those little mom and pop shops. And then tragically, Walmart left, and there was 3 or 4 ghost towns. And so this is something that we've seen over and over and over again in the retail sector. 1 or 2 companies completely dominate. And so Amazon completely dominates as well. And I really do believe that the Department of Justice, antitrust, I should say, as well as the EU, will look into breaking up Amazon longer term into 2 different companies. One company will be the retail store, meaning selling stuff online. The other company will be Amazon Web Services, which is kind of think of it like it's an operating system in the cloud, like Microsoft Windows is on your computer or Apple operating system is on your computer. Amazon Web Services is kind of like that in the cloud for big companies. And it's really interesting because back in 2005, Jeff Bezos realized that around the holiday season, he couldn't keep up with all the holiday traffic online, and Amazon servers would crash. And so what Amazon did, again, back in 2005, was they created something called Amazon Web Services, which was at the time 9 big buildings across the United States with thousands of computer servers in them. And every November, around Black Friday holiday shopping season, Amazon would turn them all on. And then by January, they had all this excess capacity every year. And they're like, what do we do with this? And so what Jeff Bezos did, and I think he's brilliant and an incredible visionary, what he did was he started renting out Amazon Web Services, the computer operating system in the cloud, so to speak, to a lot of companies. Like Netflix runs almost entirely off of Amazon Web Services. That's what, and Amazon keeps cutting the pricing point. They've cut the pricing point like 100 times already. It's unbelievable. It is so deflationary. And what's happened is a lot of companies will say, screw it. I'm not going to host all my stuff on my own servers. I'm going to host it in the cloud on Amazon Web Services. And Amazon Web Services is not just an operating system, so to speak, but there's also 400 or 500 applications you can buy. It's like a store and use that on AWS. And so not only does Netflix run their entire business basically off of Amazon Web Services, but so does Uber, Lyft, Airbnb, and all these incredible companies. And given the fact that Amazon has cut the pricing point on Amazon Web Services like 100 times since 2005, what's happened is the aforementioned companies that run on AWS, that's Amazon Web Services, have been able to compete globally and offer low prices for awesome services. Like think about Netflix. You know, they make a lot of money, and it doesn't cost that much on a monthly basis to use it. And they create all this unbelievable content, you know, movies that are also going to nominated for Academy Awards, et cetera. Airbnb as well. The reason they can run that business is because they run it entirely off of Amazon Web Services. And so I think Amazon is incredibly powerful to the extent that the government will eventually break up the company. They get into 2 separate entities, Amazon Web Services and everything else. And if they don't do that, I think what happens is the consumer will feel the pain in the long run, as monopolies are never good for consumers. Now, the caveat here is that Amazon, unlike Bell and the Bell monopoly, which got broken up in the 70s, Amazon has great customer service. And I do believe that a company is only as successful or is only as good as its customer service. They have impeccable customer service. But in the long run, I think what's going to happen is you're going to see less innovation in the broader technology space and in the retail markets as well because of Amazon's incredible dominance. So I think that I remember Alan Greenspan, who used to be the chairman of the Federal Reserve. I remember when I worked at a great big hedge fund called Citadel back in the early 2000s. I remember Ken Griffin, the billionaire founder and brilliant man and humanitarian of Citadel. He actually hired Alan Greenspan to come and give a speech at an annual event for all of us. And Alan Greenspan at that point said the reason we had such unprecedented economic growth back in the 1990s was not just because of technology. It was because the Berlin Wall fell. And what happened was, and I've got the Berlin Wall, a piece right here. Let me grab it actually. Hold on a second. I was in Berlin recently at a Udemy conference, and I went to Checkpoint Charlie and bought a piece of the Berlin Wall. It's pretty cool. It wasn't this color, though. They painted it, whatever. Long story. But what Alan Greenspan said was the reason we had unprecedented economic growth in the 1990s was not because of technology. It was mainly because the Berlin Wall fell. And when the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, what happened was you had millions of brilliant and cheap Eastern European labor moving west. And basically what happens is the reason interest rates increase usually is because of inflation, meaning prices go up and the government raises interest rates to cool down the economy. But the biggest input into inflation is the price of labor. And since you had millions of people after the wall fell moving west, millions of brilliant people that didn't cost very much, then what happened was that the price of labor actually went down. And that kept interest rates artificially low in the 1990s. That's why we had incredible prosperity in the 90s. That's one of the main reasons. Now, I bring this up because I believe, and I wrote about this in Wired Magazine and VentureBeat and a bunch of other articles online. I think this generation, this current generation's Berlin Wall teardown event is Amazon Web Services. It is very deflationary. I mean, think about all the awesome products that we get access to online for next to nothing. You know, a lot of it is because companies run almost entirely off of Amazon Web Services. Now, if we compare and contrast Amazon Web Services as a sort of operating system in the cloud, if we compare and contrast AWS to Microsoft Windows. So until recently, Microsoft only cut the pricing point on Windows 3 times from the 1980s until recently. And, you know, Microsoft was a monopoly, especially in the 90s. And then Bill Gates stepped aside and they lost share. Still a great company. However, Microsoft cut the pricing point on Windows basically only 3 times until recently. What has happened with Amazon Web Services is they've cut the pricing point like 100 times. So it's incredibly deflationary. I think Amazon's a great company. I have a lot of respect for Jeff Bezos. I think he's a brilliant visionary. But I do think that in the long run, that company will be broken up. Pretty cool, huh? Dude, it is hot in here. All right. I got this new Apple computer. It's a good high-end one, whatever. And it's really quiet, which is awesome. And I did my research on it, and it's helped my business. It's been amazing. But the only problem is that it is so damn hot. You know, it's quiet. They re-engineered it. It looks like a cheese grater, kind of. They re-engineered it to the extent that it is quiet. It's a wonderful machine. The problem is it's so damn hot. It is brutal. I should have had one of these growing up in Canada during the winters. Yeah. My mom actually used to open up the oven when we were kids. We didn't have much, just to warm the house in the mornings. Interesting. All right. And she'd leave the oven on too. Not safe, but she was always in the kitchen. I love you, Mama. All right. Let's see here. Okay. Now, in terms of, and there's a couple questions here on bankruptcy. The way the bankruptcy courts work is in 1979, the U.S. government set up 300 bankruptcy courts across the United States. And there's different chapters in that legal code. There's chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and more. And we've all heard of Chapter 11. And so what that means is if you're a company and you're having problems paying your debts, then what you can do is you can file for Chapter 11. And it's amazing because more than 70% of all companies that file for Chapter 11, as long as there's no fraud, more than 70% of them come out alive and better off. And so a lot of companies have declared a Chapter 11 over the years, like Marvel, way before Disney bought the company. Marvel declared Chapter 11, and Ron Perlman owned most of the company at that point in time. And then Carl Icahn, who's a private equity investor, swooped in to buy Marvel on the cheap and made over $1 billion by the time that Disney bought the company. But what Chapter 11 is it's a force field. Speaking of superheroes, it's a force field, and nobody can touch you for 4 months as you kind of get your stuff together, so to speak. It's an amazing thing because, again, over 70% of companies that declare bankruptcy or declare Chapter 11, as long as there's no fraud, they come out much, much better off. Okay. All right. Next up, let's see. Oh, you're most welcome, Dario. Thanks for the comments. I knew a buddy of mine in business school named Dario. I remember I used to say, "It's me, Dario." He's a good guy. That was a reference to N64, Super Mario, which was a masterpiece. Okay. Next question is, what is your take on the current climate in the private equity world? How is a day in the life of a PE associate, and what types of personalities tend to succeed in that profession, according to you? Yeah. And so I actually have so funny you asked that. I just made a case study in my MBA degree program on a private equity deal for my fictitious company. And I did spill coffee there. It's embarrassing, but I love this hat. For my fictitious company called Shark Virtual Reality. And so the way that private equity works is private equity firms usually buy companies that are not being run correctly or companies that are really cheap. And what they'll do is after they buy that company or invest a lot in that company, they'll let people go. They'll streamline the operations and make it much more profitable. Then they'll sell the company and make a fortune if they're successful. And probably the best private equity dude I've ever heard of is somebody named Henry Kravis. And so Henry Kravis, and I'll never forget, I went to Columbia Business School, and he came to give a speech, and I was excited. I got like a front row seat. I mean, this was Henry Kravis. He's a big deal to us. I was expecting him to talk about deals, and there's this great book called Barbarians at the Gate, which kind of talks about how he helped to do a private equity deal with Nabisco, which stands for the National Biscuit Company, the biscuit company. He did that back in the 90s or 80s, and it was an amazing deal. But Kravis didn't talk at all about deals. All he did for an hour and a half, and I respect him big time for this, is he talked about charity and not giving money, not just giving money, but more importantly, giving your time to help others in the world. And I thought that was awesome. And he's a big advocate for education. He's donated a lot of money to great educational institutions. And he kind of pioneered that industry, private equity. And for those of you interested in learning more about private equity in a fun way, watch a movie called OPM, which is Other People's Money, starring Danny DeVito. And like all Hollywood movies, the rich dude ends up looking like a schmuck. It is what it is. It's true, though, isn't it? It's true. Give me an example of one movie where the rich dude doesn't lose or is made to look like a jerk. There are nice rich dudes out there, and I don't think Henry Kravis is a jerk. He's a good dude. But more recently, probably the most dominant private equity company that makes headlines is Carl Icahn's company. And so what Carl Icahn will do is he'll buy a large stake in a company that's publicly traded. And then a little bit after that, he does that, like maybe a couple of weeks or a month or two after that, he has to file. All companies have to file that own big positions in publicly traded companies. And then what will happen is because he owns such a large percent of that company, he will muscle his way onto the board, and he'll force the company to restructure so he can unlock shareholder value. And he did this with eBay as well. He did this, I'll never forget. I was an investor in eBay for years. I loved it because I thought that the PayPal asset was really, really undervalued. In fact, for years, I thought that if eBay renamed themselves PayPal, you'd see multiple expansion and the stock would be worth more. And it was this mispriced asset because investors were really confused about eBay. The value investors, people that like cheap stuff with good cash flow, they love the core eBay marketplace auction business. And the growth investors who like growth and don't mind if a company's not profitable, if it's growing a lot, they like PayPal, which is growing like a weed. And so there was a lot of confusion. And because there was confusion, a lot of investors didn't bother owning the stock because growth investors didn't like the sleepy marketplace business. And value investors did not like the expensive PayPal business. And so in order to unlock shareholder value, Carl Icahn bought a lot of eBay, and he muscled his way onto the board. And eventually the CEO, John Donahoe, who I know, I've met him a number of times, brilliant man, he used to work at Bain. He's like 8 million feet tall. Eventually John Donahoe left, and a bunch of other employees did as well. And Carl Icahn forced the company to break up into two separate entities, core eBay and PayPal. And that unlocked a tremendous amount of shareholder value. He made a fortune on that, and investors prospered as well. So in that case, the parts are worth more than the whole, so to speak. Now, when it comes to private equity investors, what they do is they look at cash flow closely, really, really closely. And they look at EBITDA multiples as well. And the lower, the better, obviously. And unlike other investors won't look at cash flow as much. So if you look at hedge fund investors, let me put on my hedge fund hat. Hold on. Let's make this fun. And these are all props for my MBA degree program. So, and just ignore the BS logo. That means buy side. So hedge fund investors, for the most part, they look at the PE multiple. They don't care about DCF. And they look at price to revenues as well. Why? Because a lot of times hedge funds, the companies they invest in, are not yet profitable. So they have to look at companies with price to revenue multiples. And the best way to think about valuation is as follows. Price to earnings is just a ratio. Numerator is price, denominator is earnings. So if you look at the denominator, for every $1 in earnings a company has, how many times that $1 are investors willing to pay? So if you see a stock that's trading at 10 times earnings, that means for every $1 that company makes, investors are paying 10 times that $1. Now, if the company's growing faster, obviously it's going to be way over 10 times that $1. Now, if we compare and contrast that with price to revenue is a little bit different because a lot of companies don't have profits, especially earlier stage ones. And so what a lot of investors do, like hedge funds, for example, and also some growth-oriented mutual funds, what they do is they actually value the company on a price to revenue basis as follows. Price to revenue, just like price to earnings, means the price divided by something. So price to revenue means for every $1 in revenue, investors pay this many times that. And every industry is a little bit different. I remember back in 2012, when you had a lot of great cloud software and traditional software companies going public, like ServiceNow, ticker NOW, Splunk, ticker SPLK, and there's many others as well. And Workday, ticker WDAY. I remember investors valued those companies back then on a price to revenue basis because they didn't have much earnings at the time. And so the going rate was then between 15 and 20 times revenue for high growth cloud companies that were going public. Now, every IPO market is different and every market in general is different and every sector is different. So the way to value a company on a revenue multiple basis is just look at what the competition is trading at as well. And again, we use price to revenue if we're shorter term focused investors or growth investors, and we need to value a company that's not profitable. So when it comes to private equity firms, and I got to get my private equity hat here. Again, these are all props for my MBA degree program. This one has a coffee stain on it, but I love it. Okay. When it comes to private equity firms, they look more so at price to earnings, but mainly at cash flow. And they look at what's called discounted cash flow or net present value of future cash flows. And all that means is this. They create this model in Excel and they forecast how much a company is going to make in cash every year for the next gazillion years, whatever. and they discount all that cash into today's terms. That's why it's called discounted cash flow, or DCF. And so in terms of your follow-up question here, what's a day in the life like for a private equity person? So it all depends. It depends if they're working on a deal. If they're working on a deal, usually they work crazy hours to get the deal done as fast as possible. If they're not working on a deal, then they might just be looking for other deals that might possibly be out there. And they create financial models on a lot of publicly traded companies, and they try to see if the sum of the parts is higher than the value of the company, so to speak, or if a company is really cheap on a cash flow basis, or if a company is being not run properly. They look for those companies. And then they might invest in them, get a board seat, and then force the company to kind of change things up. Again, check out the movie Other People's Money with Danny DeVito. I think you'll love it. It's a great explanation of what private equity firms do in general. So, like any sector in finance, if you're going to make it to the top, though, or even get a job in the sector, you got to be a great salesperson and network extraordinarily well. And if you look at partners in investment banks, or law firms for that matter, partner basically means a great salesperson. You rise up through the ranks because not only do you have good attention to detail when you're doing financial modeling and stuff, but you also know how to grip and grin, or smile and dial, or whatever they call it, with other potential customers. Again, a partner in a law firm or investment bank, they're salespeople. They're salespeople, and so are entrepreneurs and CEOs. So you got to learn networking skills as well. And you can always go to my website, which is harounventures.com, to learn more about networking in general. And I see you've got another question here, which is just more detail on a day in the life and the type of personality in order to be successful, in a private equity firm. Yeah. So personality-wise, I think you got to be thick-skinned. I think you have to be aggressive as well. And you also have to be very good at networking, know when to turn it on. Okay, and you have to be able to deal with stress well. There's a lot of pressure working in a private equity firm and a hedge fund as well. You gotta, when you leave work, you gotta leave work at work. Like what I used to do when I worked in the hedge fund industry is when I got home, the second I put my hand on the doorknob on the front door there, I would condition myself to leave work outside so I can spend time with my kids. And all that good stuff. And I failed in one respect in my life. At one point, I didn't know how to detach myself from work. And I would come home, and I wouldn't be in a bad mood, but I just wouldn't talk as much. And I remember Matthew, my middle child, he's 14 now. But when he was like 3 or 4 years old, and we lived in Burlingame, California at the time, I would come home from work, and I'd open the door, and he'd come running up to me. And sometimes I'd sit down because the alarm would beep a bit. And both my sons, Andrew and Matthew, come running up to me and give me a hug. I love that. I savor that moment. And by the way, by the time your kid is 12 years old, you've already spent 90% of the time you'll ever spend with them. You can't get that time back. But the failure on my part was, I remember Matthew, he'd run up to me and he'd say, Daddy, did you have a good day at work today or not a good day? And if I said, oh, it wasn't that great, then he'd say, oh, and he'd walk away. And then if I said I had a great day, he would light up like a Christmas tree, like Tweety Bird. And he'd say, great, Daddy, can we play baseball in the backyard? And so I learned after a while that it's not cool to bring the pressures of finance, whatever finance industry you work in, venture capitalists, et cetera. It doesn't make sense to bring that home. And so, again, I condition myself when I touch that doorknob. When I come home, I turn off work like a switch. So it is a stressful industry. In terms of day in the life, again, it all depends on if you're working on a deal right now. If not, you might be looking to screen for companies that are cheap on a cash flow basis. So that's private equity in a nutshell. And if anybody wants to talk about hedge funds, let me know. And it's ridiculous, but I have literally 20 other hats there for other roles, other finance roles that we talk about in my MBA degree program. And I do it because it's the most fun and easiest way to explain how all this stuff works. I also have a ton of boxes like that, and that's for one of my lessons on the income statement. So we got income statement components there, and then right there, you on the right sideways, you've got PP&E, property, plant, and equipment from the balance sheet. And on top of that, you got cash flow from operations. And that's part of a DCF lesson that I'm putting together right now for my students. If you have any follow-up questions, as always, let me know. But let me show you one more quick thing. So over here, I've got a scale. And it's a beautiful scale from 1880. I bought it on eBay. And up there, those blocks, those are just formulas for finance that I use to show and tell and teach, I guess. But I use that balance sheet to teach or the scale teach how a balance sheet works. And I love to keep it engaging like that. And I remember when I was a kid, I remember show and tell at school. And I remember the objects that people brought in to show, but I don't remember any other speeches ever. And so I think this is a really effective way to teach, and it's a lot of fun as well. So for more details on my MBA degree program, which takes 1 to 2 years, you can go to my website, which is harounventures.com. And as always, if you have follow-up questions, please let me know, and thank you. Okay. All right. And Quendrim is saying, I love this show. God bless you, Chris. Thank you, and God bless you more. Yeah. And I see Melody on the call. Melody, we exchanged texts this week, and I'm so happy for you that you got that job. It's so awesome. And remember, I told you that not to worry because God already knows what's going to happen, and everything worked out. So God bless you. I prayed for you, actually, and your family in church this week. Yeah. I went to church at 5 p.m. on Saturday because I'm a reader. I read the first reading, the second reading at once a month or so at my church. All right. And yes, I can mention God in class, and nobody can tell me what to do because this is my company. Okay. Let's see what is next. And Baha'i Gamer is saying, hey, Chris, hey, how are you? And Kunal's got a question. What's the benefit of directly listing a company instead of an IPO, other than the fact that you save investment banking fees? Spotify and Slack were listed directly instead of an IPO. Yeah, I think it's tough to do. I think some companies will be successful doing it. But the great thing about hiring an investment bank, and I've got all my investment banker hats back there, I can role play if you want, tell you how a deal works. But the great thing about hiring an investment bank is they have distribution channels all over the world. And so when you hire an investment bank, they put together what's called an S1 along with a bunch of lawyers. And let's actually go and look at one together really quickly. So let's take a look here. Let's go to sec.gov. And by law, if you're going to list on the major U.S. stock markets, let me just make this a bit bigger for you. If you're going to list on the major U.S. stock markets, you have to file what's called an S1 document. Make sure you're still recording. Good. An S1 document. In an S1, and I'll just type here, hold on a second. I'll go to more search options. I think I clicked backwards by accident. Yeesh. Here it is here. Yeah. When you file an S1, it basically highlights all of the risks inherent within investing in that company. Never invest in anything unless you get an offering memorandum, and never create one yourself. Make sure to get lawyers to create it. Okay, internet is slow. It's coming soon, I promise you. But while we're waiting for that, what I'll do is I'll show you what an S1 looks like, the paper version. Of course, given Mercy's Law, it showed up as I was grabbing this. So this is what it looks like. And I'll pull it up here as well for Facebook. So you go to S-1. And so Facebook went public in the summer of 2012. And basically, the way it works is they have to file an S1 like you see right here. And whenever you see the letter A after it, that means it's an amended S1. They made changes. So this one here, the price or the date is May 3rd. So let's go find the May 3rd one. Put myself in the spot here. Here's the May 3rd S1. So if you open it up, basically you have this document here. And I bring this up because on the cover here, and let me just do a real zoom in here. Is it working? There we go. Slowly but surely it is working. Okay. But on this S1, if you scroll down to the bottom here, you can see Morgan Stanley top left. That means they ran the IPO. Top right is prestigious but not as prestigious was Goldman Sachs. They were part of that syndicate as well. And there's a bunch of investment banks included here. And the reason why there's a bunch of investment banks is because investment banks have distribution channels, kind of like retail stores all over the world. And they call them equity salespeople and trading floors. And the sell side, which is what people call investment banks, they can sell your product, your IPO product, all over the world. So you got a lot of great American firms here, but you have some other great international ones like RBC, the Royal Bank of Canada. And they could sell this Facebook IPO in Canada and other markets too. They're all over the world. You got Credit Suisse, which obviously is in it was a Swiss company, and then they merged with First Boston. It used to be called Credit Suisse First Boston, or CSFB. Now it's just called Credit Suisse. They've got offices everywhere. You got Deutsche Bank, which of course is it's in Germany. So the good thing about hiring an investment bank is that they have distribution channels all over the world for you. Yeah, they're expensive, but the great ones are successful most of the time, like Goldman Sachs. And I am biased because I used to work there. I think it's a great company. Morgan Stanley is great as well, right? And that's why people don't mind paying a bit of a fee if the IPO is going to be a success. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's like my iPhone, which I don't know, where is it? I think I left over here. Oh, here it is. Yeah. It's kind of like my iPhone. Like, I know I'm paying a premium for this product. Can I buy a BlackBerry instead, my beloved Canadian company? Yes, I can. Maybe I can get it cheaper. Is it worth it? No. I don't mind paying a premium for this because it just works. And a company is only as good as its customer service, and Apple has great customer service, just like a lot of these incredible investment banks here. Okay. Next question is, why is the value of a conglomerate often less than the sum of its parts? It's because investors get confused and investors are picky. And so there's usually two types of investors. There's growth investors that like to buy expensive stuff that's growing fast. And there's value investors that like to buy cheap stuff that's usually not growing as quickly. And so if you're a conglomerate like General Electric, and you've got a lot of different divisions, some are growing quickly, some are not. And so the growth investors like the divisions within General Electric that are growing fast, but they don't like the sleepy value stuff. The value investors like the cheap stuff in GE and their dividend yield, but some of the growth assets, maybe they're not a big fan of. And both growth and value investors in 2008, when it came to General Electric, they thought, oh my goodness, because of GE finance, GE is a bank. And I was short GE for most of 2008 because of that. People thought General Electric was a bank, and there's a lot of investor confusion. And so what Jeffrey Immelt did, and I think he was a great CEO, he's no longer there, was he actually worked on breaking up parts of GE. And Jack Welch, who architected the strategy of showing market dominance in many different industries, he ran the company incredibly well. And he left, I think, back in the early 2000s or so, maybe it was late 90s, I can't remember. And he wrote this great book that you should read if you care about management, called Straight from the Gut by Jack Welch. It's great. But what happened was eventually different divisions were spun off. Like, for example, NBC, for years, GE owned that asset, and then they kind of spun off parts of it. I got to go there. This is fascinating. I got a tour of NBC Studios at Rockefeller Center years ago, back in the 90s. And that's where they film Saturday Night Live. And when I was there, I asked a lot of questions about NBC. And the jingle, like when you're watching NBC and you hear ding, ding, ding on a piano, those are GEC, which is the General Electric Corporation. Pretty interesting. But anyway, they spun off a lot of those assets and they worked on unlocking shareholder value. And a lot of companies that are conglomerates, it was a big trend back in the 80s and early 90s, I guess. And people loved investing in companies that were big conglomerates because they had market power across different industries and hopefully synergies too. And then it got out of hand and companies over diversified, like United Technologies. They own, I think they own Sikorsky, the helicopter company. As well as companies that make golf carts, and they also own the Otis Elevator Company. And so investors want that company to break up as well, just to unlock shareholder value. And investor appetite changes over time as well. And so to unlock shareholder value, a lot of times these big conglomerates end up splitting up into multiple companies. Okay. All right, let me just clean up my desk. When I used to work at Goldman, I remember somebody told me a clean desk is a happy desk. And I would leave every day and my desk would be empty. So I could come into work the next day and not feel overwhelmed. Yeah, and the problem with working for yourself is that, like, I'm self-employed. Like when I work for other people, I used to be able to leave work and say, okay, I'm leaving work, I'm going home. When you work for yourself, you got to know when to say enough is enough. You got to force yourself to take, one day off a week at least, Sundays. It's prophetic and it's been true since the beginning of time. You got to rest in the seventh day, whatever that day might be for you. But I've had issues kind of knowing when to stop because I love doing what I'm doing so much. But anyway, a little off topic there. All right. Next up is John Clee, and I smile because John is from Rochester. And the first question he ever asked me over a year ago on this webcast was, who are my favorite comedians? And so every time I see his name, I think of John Cleese. Welcome back, John. And John is saying, can you boil down to me what the gift tax is in the United States? Great to see you on this snowy day from Rochester. Awesome. Great to have you. You know what, man? I live in California now, but I do miss the seasons. Like in Toronto, I remember we were always happy whenever spring came along. So you always had something to look forward to. Yeah, it was cold. We didn't know any better. We made the best of it. We played hockey outdoors during the winter. And then we played 500 up, which is baseball, I think, during the summers. But I do miss the seasonal changes a lot, actually, and I miss home a lot. I'm homesick. And so your question is, can you boil down to me what the gift tax is in the United States? Yeah. So, and the tax code changes every now and then, but you can gift a bunch of stuff. So if you own shares in a company and you don't want to sell those shares because you have to pay taxes, what you can do actually is you can just gift them and get a tax break. You can gift them, meaning give them to a charity, a registered 501c. What you can also do is, if let's just say, John, that you and your wife are trying to buy a house, your mom and dad can give you both gifts, a certain amount of money, tax-free, okay, that you can use for your house, and your wife's mom and dad can do the same thing. So you get 4 gifts, and so it works out quite well. And there's different tax codes in different regions within the country and globally as well. But usually when you donate to a charity, you always want to ask for a receipt so you can pay less in taxes. In terms of the exact dollar amount or percent terms now when it comes to gift taxes in the United States, I can't recall off the top of my head. I'm sorry. But I do recommend that everybody get their own accountant because accountants will obviously write off as much stuff as they can for you, but they'll keep you within the confines of what's legal and what's not. And they'll save you a lot of money, I promise you. So the way to find an accountant, and there's no centralized repository online to find great accountants, the way to do it is just ask your mom or dad or aunt or uncle or rich aunt, whatever it is, or anybody successful, and just ask them, who do you use for your accountant? And they'll happily introduce that accountant to you. But I've found that I've saved a lot of money and uncovered a lot of breaks just by hiring an accountant. And the same thing with tax law. Like I pay this tax lawyer. The name of the firm is Tax Ninja in San Francisco. I pay him a lot, like every hour. It's crazy how much they charge per hour, but it's totally worth it because they save me a ton of money as well. For all of you that are paying to take courses online, if you're unemployed, there might be a chance that you can write that off. Talk to an accountant first, please. I don't know the exact rules, but you can. I remember I was unemployed, and when I spent money on job search stuff, I was able to write that off. So anyway, talk to an accountant. Get an accountant to file your taxes, please, because I promise you'll save a fortune in the long run. Yeah. That shelf back there is empty, and it's bothering me. So I have to put something there. Hold on. There we go. I'll put my Jackie Robinson, number 42. Love that guy. Mutual fund hat there. This is just from a case study in my MBA degree program. Yeah. All right. Looks better. I messed up the shadows this week, though. It was kind of last minute. And I threw a bunch of these lights up, trying to do something different. I put a blue light behind me there, too, as well. I'm trying to just mix it up, but it gets kind of boring having the same set all the time. And for those of you that, and I'm so sorry that I screwed up the my MBA degree program this week. I did Q&A for one of the sessions, and the quality of the sound wasn't that great. So I actually got I got a blue Yeti up here. It's anyway, I'll show it to you. Let me pull it down here. So this here is it's a Blue Yeti Nano. It's a great product, and I've got it hanging here from the ceiling. I just unplugged it, but this is my backup if sound ever goes down again, which is never going to happen again. I promise you. Let me just bend this. Actually, I want to try it out. If you guys don't mind, I want to ask for your feedback on this. Give me 1 second. And I'll give you a different vantage point while I'm doing that. Hold on a second. All right. So what you can't see is I've got poles running along the ceiling, and that's how I hang a lot of things. And they're massively reinforced as well. Okay, hold on. Okay, so I turned it on here, and you can see it up at the top right here. See there? So let me try to get it to work, and I'll ask you all for your feedback. Let me turn off the air conditioning. Thanks for being my guinea pigs here. All right, so let me just scroll down, and I'll show you what I'm doing here if you guys care. So the software I'm using here is called Wirecast, and you can use a free version of a product like this called OBS or Open Broadcast software. So what I'm going to do is unmute this. Hello? Good. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you how to add this. So I deleted it, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to add an audio, Yeti Nano, add, test. Okay, good. Now I'm going to mute this guy and just use this, and let me know if it's clear, number one, and number two, if the volume is good enough. So let me mute this here first. All right. So how's the audio on that? Let me know, please, if it's, number one, loud enough. I don't think it is. And number two, if the sound quality is clear. So just let me know your feedback, and I'll turn this off and go back to the other one for now. This is the one that Joe Rogan uses, or Seth Rogen, as I call them. Test. There we go. Okay, yeah. All right, cool. And I'll scroll down later, and I'd love to get your feedback, guys, on that. Thanks. Okay. So next up is Melody. Let me just go back to this screen here. Melody is saying, I just want to let you know that if you are feeling discouraged, please know that you can get yourself out of any situation. I highly recommend looking at some of Chris's courses. It has helped me and my husband tremendously. God bless you. Thank you so much for that, Melody. That's why I do this, is to humbly help if I can. You know, it's comments like that keep me going. So thank you so much, and God bless you, and congratulations on the new job. And for those of you not familiar with Melody, she's from Atlanta, and she has two wonderful children. And you actually showed us your kids. They came on the webcast on October 31st, 2019, if you're watching replay, at 4 p.m. And I remember that very well because that day, it was Halloween, we went 9.5 hours straight, nonstop. I didn't get up once, which is crazy. But I remember you came on, and Melody's a teacher, again, from Atlanta. And she's got a great setup, and I think you have a Canon M50 that you have running, right? And the audio quality was great as well. Last time we did a Zoom webcast as well. Yeah, thank you. But always great to have you, and thank you so much for that comment. Appreciate that. Okay, Ted. Hey, Ted. Ted is saying, okay, so there's a bar owner and a bartender. Oh, it's a good joke. Here we go. The bar owner says to the bartender, "Are you sleeping with the waitress?" The bartender said no. Is that a real story? I thought that was a joke. Sorry. If that's a real story, let me know. I thought you were starting off by saying a joke. Okay. Let's go next up here. So Harish is saying, "Hey, Chris, I hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well as well." I got to say a joke then. Here I go. All right. So I went to the doctor, and I told the doctor, and this is dad humor. I told the doctor, it really hurts right here. Oh, God, it hurts. And when I touch up here, oh, God, it hurts. And when I touch it, oh my God, it hurts. And even right here, oh my God, it hurts. What's wrong? And the doctor told me, oh, your finger's broken. No, I know. That's dad humor. It happens when you get older because you have to be PG because you're kids, whatever. So anyway. And when you get older, you repeat the same jokes over and over and over again. So I probably told you that joke a million times before. And Kunal is saying, nice caps you got there. Thank you. Appreciate it. And I don't like the younger generation, the way they wear hats. Let me show you. Hold on. So clearly I'm old, but when I wear a hat, like I like to work it in like this, you know, and then you wear it. And these things never look perfect on my head, but I like that it's just the way it is, right? It's the way it's always been. Now, the younger generation, and bonus points to anybody that tells me what movie this hat is from, the younger generation wear their hats like this. I can't get there. I just can't do that. And this was, oh, by the way, this is equity capital markets, part of an investment bank. This is for a case study we did in my MBA degree program. But yeah, I just can't, that's just not me. It has to be bent. I just don't get it. It's kind of like, and I'll never understand this ever, but sometimes people will have their pants down a little bit and you see their boxers. Like, I don't understand that. I just don't get it. Maybe it's an old man generation thing. I just don't get it. Yeah. Okay. And then Harish is saying, I have a question regarding capital budgeting. If the net present value equals 0, signifies no profitability, then why does the IRR have a finite value, which means there is a return at an NPV of 0? How can a return and no profit exist? Well, I'd have to see the numbers, but for those of you not familiar with NPV, that means it's in Microsoft Excel. You can type up equals NPV open brackets, then you type the rate, and then you highlight the cash flows, and it'll tell you what all those cash flows in the future are going to be worth today at a given interest rate. But I don't know. I can't answer that question. I actually don't know. I don't know. Maybe IRR tells you the return over time, but doesn't look at cash flows. Maybe it's just looking at, GAAP-based earnings. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. And then Kunal is saying, I think you should give merchandising a try. Yeah. Now, people have mentioned that before. They wanted merch, as my kids call it. And by the way, if you guys have kids or nephews, nieces, whatever, watch how they consume information and technology and media, because it's drastically different from older generations. And you can learn a lot from them too, and invest in great trends as well. So, like my kids now, they love YouTube, but I ask them, well, if YouTube goes down, what do? Do you watch television? They're like, no. They'll watch Twitch, or the new thing they're into now is called TikTok, which is, oh my God, dude, it is so addictive. You guys tried this? It is awesome. So it's this app, and in this TikTok, in this app, what you can do is you just watch funny little 10 or 15 second clips, and it's kind of like what Vine was, and Vine was awesome. I don't know why Vine went belly up, or what a great asset that was. I just don't get why one of the big internet companies didn't buy that brand and turn it into something big, like Twitter or something, if they ever want to get a video strategy. Yeah. But merchandising, yeah. And so actually, Kunal, one of my students named Rose, she's awesome in my MBA degree program. What she did is she actually she taught all of us how to use Amazon to sell merchandise. And so, as you know, on Amazon, whenever you buy a book, it actually hasn't been printed yet. So these are books that my students actually have made over the years using the template I provided them with. And several of these are in my MBA degree program, these two here in particular. We got Yolanda and Eric. And if you guys want that template, just go to harounventures.com/ all lowercase, write book, all one word, write book. There's no email you have to enter, and you can just download the template. But I write all my books doing that, using that template I made for you all, Microsoft Word. It's easy, so easy to do. But when I bought these books for my students, when I looked at the last page here, it tells you the day it was printed and where it was made. So I'm on the West Coast in the United States. I ordered this book on January 1st or December 31st. I can't remember. It says here January 2nd, 2020. That's the day it was birthed in San Bernardino, California. And if you live in Europe, most likely it's in Poland. But open up the back of any paperback book and you'll see the day it was birthed, so to speak. And I mention this because it's absolutely a brilliant way to sell your product without incurring huge inventory. Like for example, and I've talked about this before, the Atari Corporation went belly up because they made too many ET cartridges, and they had to bury hundreds of thousands of these in the desert back in the 80s. Interesting story. But when you write a book, if you self-publish on Amazon, it's awesome because you don't pay a penny. And whenever somebody buys the product, what happens is it gets printed and then shipped to them within a day or two. And that's called just-in-time inventory. And it's something that this brilliant American economist named Edward Deming pioneered. And then the Japanese perfected it too in the automotive industry, just-in-time production. And I mentioned this because you had a question about merchandise. But one of my students in my MBA degree program, Rose, she published an article on LinkedIn recently sharing her awesome knowledge of how to do this with merchandise on Amazon. You can actually have clothes made on Amazon and you can sell them. And when somebody buys it, then Amazon gets it printed and they ship it off for you, which is amazing. It's incredible, man. Amazon really is an amazing company. And I have amazing students. Oh, the first book that one of my students published was Phil Germany. It's very prophetic because the name of the book here is Super Students. And I got to make that my cover image for this week. Here we go. By the way, when people do vlogs in YouTube, what they do usually is they keep the camera running after they finish the vlog and they do a bunch of poses so they can use that as the thumbnail. So I guess I have to do this now. Here we go. There we go. I know, cringeworthy, I get it. But Phil Germany, and Phil, if you're on the call, let me know, buddy. And anybody from Germany, I want to thank you for Hans Zimmer. That guy's changed my life. His music, oh my God. And if you guys haven't listened to the soundtrack for Interstellar, put that on your list and listen to it, please. Ask SIRI or ALEX. I don't want them to turn on, to play the soundtrack, Interstellar. It'll put you in this awesome zone so you can be really, really productive when you're working. And I believe we set the soundtrack for our life. And also we control our environment. Like if you listen to great music, make sure that the room is a perfect temperature, drink coffee, spoil stuff like that. You're going to love work to the extent that it's not work. You actually enjoy it. So try listening to music from Hans Zimmer next time you're working. But speaking of Germany, so Philip, Germany, he's my first student that actually wrote a book using my template called Super Students. And anybody can write a book. Again, just go to my website. You can download a template. Go to harounventures.com/ all lowercase, write book, all one word, write book. Yeah. All right. Write book, W-R-I. I don't, why does write start with a W? The English language is really messed up, man. Okay. All right. Oh, Mercy. Mercy saying, good morning, Chris. Hope you're enjoying the session as well. Great to have you, Mercy. And Mercy is from the great city of Victoria in British Columbia on the west coast in Canada. I'm also on the left coast in California here. Although I'm not left. No, I think I'm probably a libertarian. It all depends on who the politician is. All right. No more politics, Chris. All right. Let's see what is next. And Tien, hey, how are you? Is saying, so I'm not a work on a mailroom. I'm a developer, and it seemed like more hard work to build the network since developers most of the time they spend more time with PCs than humans. Do you have any suggestions? Yeah. And you wrote, for the book, I already registered and I still don't see the email. Check your junk folder, please. Yeah, check your junk folder. Don't buy any of my books though, because you can get that free on my website. Yeah. Check your junk folder, maybe enter in a different email address and it'll automatically be sent to you. And if it doesn't work, please let me know and I'll make sure we fix it today. Okay. But I know what you're saying. So you spend too much time coding. You don't have time to go out and socialize. And I want to bring something up that I don't think you're implying, but it's something that happened to me. So when I used to be a programmer back in the 90s, and I loved it, and you're going to love what I'm about to say because you're going to really resonate with this. But I loved it because I would listen to music while I was coding, and 10 hours would go by like that, and I wouldn't even know that time was changing. But I was in a zone so focused on coding, drinking Jolt Cola at the time in the pre-Red Bull days. But I'd be so focused that 10 hours would go by like that, and I wouldn't even realize it. And then I go to a party, and I actually was kind of shy. It was uncomfortable for me to try to socialize. Really uncomfortable. I know it's out there. It was uncomfortable because I was a brain on a stick, or just a stick, whatever, when I was coding, and I didn't really spend as much time socializing. And then what I did, and what we should all do, is we should always run to our fears in business or in life. Just run towards it. And I forced myself to get out there. And I was a shy, reserved kid. They wanted to fail me in the 6th grade and the 8th grade, so I had confidence issues. And then I got to a point where I'm like, I got to run to my fears, and I just don't care what people think. That's what you got to do as well. Say, I don't care. But if you find that you're too isolated with just coding, you got to force yourself to get outside your comfort zone and get out there and socialize and meet people, have fun, and learn. And what you can do, and the first thing I recommend is maybe at your company there, set up a couple of coffee meetings with other developers or people you work with, and just start to network that way. And then also, and as I mentioned in my networking book, or you can take my course on Udemy, the complete job course, which has a lifetime money back guarantee. You gotta set up a lot of networking meetings using LinkedIn. I explain exactly how to do it in my course. And for all my MBA degree students, I got down on my knees in a class recently, and I said, I want you all to set up at least one informational meeting every single week using the methodologies I taught them. And if you do that, you will get the job of your dreams. I promise you. And when I used to teach during the evenings in MBA schools, undergraduate business schools here in the Bay Area, what I would do is I would say in the first class, I would say, welcome to the class. It's a 10-week class. And if I told all of you, I would say this to all my students on day one, if I told all of you that if you set up one informational meeting every week for the next 10 weeks, if I told you that if you did that, you would get the job of your dreams, how many of you would do it? And all 70 hands would go up. I loved having big class. It was fun, a lot of great energy. And then on the last day, right before the final exam, which was always easy, and I remember Tom Thomas, who was, I guess, my boss at San Francisco State when I was working part-time there, he said, Chris, I'm seeing great inflation yet again in your class. And I would always say, but these are the best students I've ever had. But it's true. I love that school to death. But I remember on the last day, the final exam, I would say, how many people did 10 meetings? No hands would go up. How many did 9 meetings? No hands would go up. How many did 8 meetings? Maybe 1 or 2 hands go up. And those students were never the top students, but those are the ones that got the jobs of their dreams always. If you want something in life, you got to ask. Nothing's going to be given to you. You got to ask for it. It's prophetic. It's been true since the beginning of time. Asking will receive. It's true. You got to be resilient. You got to be a pit bull on a pork chop and keep asking over and over and over again until somebody says yes. That's how you get a date. That's how you get everything you want in life. And the problem is that when we're younger and we're in high school or undergrad or whatever, we keep our heads down. And if we get good grades, our parents are proud of us. And life just works better. So what happens is you graduate and you start working for other people, and you keep your head down and you work very, very hard. And you don't get a promotion and you don't get a raise. And then you realize that the people that get promotions or raises, the only reason they get them is because they ask. Nobody has ever made CEO without asking to get promoted multiple times. If you want something in life, you got to ask. And so your homework, 2 things today, please, is, or your shkudai, if Fujimori-san's still in the call, your homework is to go to YouTube and do a search on these 3 words. Steve Jobs ask. Okay. Steve Jobs ask. That's a 1-minute video that'll change your life. So write that down, Steve Jobs ask. And your other homework is this. This one's more important, actually. Go to YouTube and do a search on Steve Jobs. No one is smarter than you. Steve Jobs, smarter than you. That's a 1-minute video it's just life-changing. And he says something along these lines. He says, once you realize that everything around you was made by people that are no smarter than you, you'll never be the same. And as Henry Ford said, whether or not you think you can do it, you're right. It's just a switch you got to flick on up here. So check out those 2 videos, please. And then Ashutosh is saying, hi, sir. Chris, please. I saw you join a course on Udemy. Thank you. Thank you. And you said how it will help my finance career. Awesome. Awesome. I hope it does. And if it doesn't, let me know. I'm here. This is something I do for my students, and I will do every Thursday forever. This is week number 76. Crazy. But you can always come and ask me questions here, and I'll always be here for you. This is free forever. Yeah. Okay. Hold on one second here. Melody is saying, I'm telling you, Chris's courses do work. Oh, thank you. God bless you. And you wrote, I'm so grateful that my husband shared this information. I think I bought almost all of Chris's courses. It helped me and my husband to find a job we love. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. God bless you. And there's a lifetime money back guarantee. So you can still ask for your money back if you want even. Yeah. But thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Lots of love to you and your family and your 2 wonderful children. Okay. And then Melody's saying, I want to see the ET game. I wanted this game so bad. Dude, it was so, we got to look together at this. This destroyed the video game industry. Like it was left for dead. Like there's a period between 82 and 85 where nothing happened in video games. Those were 3 awful years of my life. And then Nintendo came along with the 8-bit and just changed the world. Like it was awesome. Awesome. And Nintendo is so good at repurposing content, meaning taking content they've developed in the past and just putting on different platforms. Like Mario 64 is on a lot of different, consoles now. Same thing with the 8-bit and 16-bit version of Mario, Super Mario 1, 2, 3, etc. They're great at repurposing content. And the best YouTubers are great at that too, or social media people, whatever. Like Gary Vaynerchuk. He repurposes content like Nintendo does. But we got to go together and check out this game. All right, hold on one second. Let me go here, and maybe we'll go to YouTube. ET video game. Make sure we're still recording, or we're still streaming. Good. Here it is. Here. Okay. Now I'm gonna play it. It's so bad. Here it is. Let me go 1080. This will hurt my bandwidth for a second.
Hey guys, Jesse here playing E.T.
So bad.
For the Atari 2600. A lot of you.
Here it is. I remember this.
Not exactly sure what's going on.
Those are the feds chasing E.T. He fell into a pit. This bankrupted Atari. Oh, apparently if you make your neck bigger like that, you can go up in the air. Oh, he can turn. I didn't think he could turn. That was Pac-Man. You couldn't turn both ways. Falls in a pit again. Raises his neck, goes up.
Oh, come on.
Worst game ever. Inventory bad.
Okay, I'm beginning to understand why this is the worst game. Oh, come on.
Worst game ever. Ever. So anyway, that video game was so bad, Atari made hundreds of thousands of these things, and they had to bury them in the desert, and it destroyed the company. And that's why when you analyze financial statements, like on the balance sheet, you look at what's called the current ratio, which is current assets divided by current liabilities. Greater than 1 is good. But the problem with current assets divided by current liabilities is that inventory is part of current assets. And so that's a misleading formula. So there's another formula called the quick ratio, which is current assets minus, all in brackets at the top, current assets minus inventory divided by current liabilities. Again, your company can get absolutely destroyed by inventory. Let me just change my bandwidth here so you guys can see better. Okay, great. That's got to be, I got to make that one of my vlogs this week. I got a point. Hold on a second. All All right, there we go. All right, this is fun. I'm having fun. Okay. Next up, and I think Ashutosh is asking, how will my finance courses help your finance career? It'll help you thoroughly understand how finance and accounting works. And I'm completely transparent, as you all know. I have nothing to hide. It's not a good thing because I'm always one dumb comment away from destroying my life on these live webcasts, which I won't do. But when I took accounting the first time, I got a D, and I was at McGill University. It was the summer of 1990, and I remember the semester was done. I was at my parents' cottage, and I called up MARS, which is McGill University's automated registration service, to get my grades. I was really hungover, but too many Cuba Libras. It's true. And it said, your grade in accounting is D. And it was an automated voice, and it sounded like she was saying it in a mean way. It sounded like it. But I remember I thought my life was over at the time. But it actually, in hindsight, I'm glad I got a D. And perception becomes reality. Like a lot of your failures in life were actually blessings in disguise. You'll see one day. It all makes sense. But I failed because I got a D because I was memorizing accounting and finance. I wasn't understanding it. And you can do well in high school if you memorize stuff. But when you get to university or the real world, if you memorize stuff, it's not going to help you. You got to understand it. You got to thoroughly understand it. And so that's why my courses like this here is for my MBA degree students. That's a balanced scale, and that's a balance sheet. And I explain why it's called a balance sheet. So I like to visualize it. But the most important thing I can tell you, and up there is I was showing them DCF. That's the income statement. I got property, plant, and equipment here from the balance sheet, and up there is cash flow from operations. These are just props for my MBA degree students. But you have to thoroughly understand finance and accounting if you want to do well. And I don't think anybody should invest in stocks unless they thoroughly understand accounting and finance. Otherwise, let somebody else pick your stocks for you. But I teach it in such a way where it's fun, it's visual, and you'll enjoy it. And after taking my courses, I humbly believe that you'll learn to read finance and accounting statements like a good book. You got to enjoy it. Whatever you enjoy doing or condition yourself to enjoy, you'll be really good at. Yeah. So yeah, my courses, I have a lot of fun, a lot of bad dad humor, a lot. And I repeat my jokes. It's terrible. But check it out if you want to on Udemy or join me for my MBA degree program. And for more details on my MBA degree program, you can go to my website, harounventures.com, and there's a very long FAQ there, frequently asked questions. Thanks. All right, Gregory. Gregory, I know I'm a broken record player, but every time I see your name, I smile because I think of that character, Gregory, on that awesome TV show, Succession. Yeah. Great to have you. Asamina in the house. How are you? Asamina is saying, hello, Chris. I hope you have a lovely week. How's everything? Things are great. Thanks. Things are great. And it's so wonderful to hear from you. And I hope your video game is going really well. Okay. And Asamina is, she's from Greece, lives in, is it Belgium? I think. And then, and you're making a video game as well on the side. She's an expert in coding. And she works at Ryanair, which is a great big Irish discount airline. Yeah. All right. Next up is Sai saying, can you say something about human life through the Myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus? Yeah. So I read Albert Camus. Albert Camus, for those who are not familiar, is this great French writer. He's like the J.D. Salinger of America. And he wrote this book called L'étranger, The Stranger, which I read in high school years ago. When I studied in France, actually, at a place called Jean-Jacques Rousseau in Nice. But I'm not familiar with Sisyphus. Sorry, but I did enjoy reading L'étranger by Camus. Somebody's got to make a movie out of that. Just like somebody's got to make a movie out of Salinger's Catcher in the Rye. And my son Andrew's reading that in high school now. It's a great book. But it's also had this bizarre impact on society. Like the guy that Mark David Chapman, who's the guy that murdered John Lennon in 1980 at the Dakota on the Upper West Side of New York. After he killed Lennon, what he did was he didn't run away, but he was leaning against a lamppost in front of the Dakota on the Upper West Side there. waiting for the police to arrive. And he was reading, he was reading Catcher in the Rye. Yeah. But somebody's got to make a great movie out of that book one day. Yeah. All right. Next up, Gregory is saying, have you ever studied the Moore's Law in your business study case or provision case? Yeah. And I've actually got a case study on it. But I got to show you something. Give me 1 second when it comes to Gordon Moore. And he was the co-founder of Intel along with the late, great Andy Grove. But give me 1 second. I want to show you something. All right, 1 second. So let me get a little bit more real estate here. So this here, that's Gordon Moore. So Gordon Moore, for those of you not familiar with him, and the Traitorous Eight, these were 8 people, and I teach about this in my MBA degree program. We do a case study on it too. And there's Eugene Kleiner as well from Kleiner Perkins, the great venture capital firm. So these 8 people, they're called the Traitorous Eight. And what they did was they worked for some guy who's was tough to work for. There's a big filter going on here. His name was William Shockley at a semiconductor company, and he treated them so poorly. And so these 8 people worked for William Shockley, and it was like a cabal. They said enough is enough. And they were so frustrated. And frustration's a beautiful thing in business because it forces you to get outside your comfort zone and reinvent yourself. And that's what these 8 people did. They reinvented themselves and they reinvented the world. It's true. What they did was they left Shockley and they started their own company called Fairchild Semiconductor. And what Fairchild Semiconductor did was in 1960, Americans were brokenhearted. Because what happened was the Soviets, Russia, beat the United States to the moon or to space. And so Americans were brokenhearted. And so Kennedy said, screw this, man. And he was a great president because he created the Peace Corps. No one gives him credit for that. He's awesome. But Kennedy said, okay, let's create something called NASA. And the goal of NASA is going to be to put a person on the moon before the Russians do. And in order to put a person on the moon, what had to happen was you had to be able to fit 100,000 little transistors into the top part of a rocket called the fuselage. And there was no technology out there to do that. And so what happened was the first notable venture capital deal was done in Fairchild Semiconductor. Okay. And what they did was they figured out how to do it. And as a result, by 1969, if you believe they put a man on the moon, I've got the REM song in my head now. Great song. But they actually ended up doing it. But then what happened was, like with all great companies, this company, Fairchild, got too big and got bureaucratic. And as a result, people left. And the companies that came out of this were called Fairchildren. Like Intel, Gordon Moore. NVIDIA, the great graphics company too, ticker NVDA. AMD as well, another great chip company, which is finally giving Intel a run for its money. And then what happened was that semiconductor industry did well and flourished in the Bay Area. And then people left those semiconductor companies to start computer companies, PCs. And then people left those PC companies to start software companies. And then people left those software companies to start internet companies, rinse, lather, repeat. And so that's one of the reasons why Silicon Valley is so successful. It's because of these heroes of mine, the Traitorous Eight. But that's Gordon Moore there. And you're asking about, here in your question, about Moore's Law. So Moore's Law basically says that I think it's like every year or so, or year and a half, whatever, the price of processors drops by like 50%. The processing power increases a lot. And so that kind of held true for a while with single processor-based computers. And then it didn't really hold up as well. And so what happened was they had to put multiple processors in computers. Like, for example, and I'm such a nerd, but I have to go there because I just have to nerd out. Here I go. I'm going to show you how many processors I got in my computer here. All right, so let's go about a boot. That's how you say it in Canada, a boot this Mac. So I've got here, where is it again? 28 core Intel processors in this computer. And I've got all my memory filled up, 1.5 terabytes. I am a nerd of memory on this bad boy here, only because it's my job to do this, and I have to be able to operate a gazillion cameras at the same time. And we're actually recording 500 hours of 4K classes this year. All brand new content I'm making for my MBA degree program. Now, the students in the program only see the 1080p version, but we're recording it to future-proof it in 4K. And the only way I could do it was to have this. And I've got a great server that just came from an awesome company in Southern California called LumaForge. And LumaForge makes a product called the Jellyfish server. And I just got a server from them that's 240 terabytes so that I future-proofed this entire operation going forward. But I had to have a high-end processor because we process just a ton of stuff. So, and for those of you in my MBA degree program, we started, I think, December 2nd. I think we have more than 50 hours now of classes recorded up on Teachables for all of you. And I advertised to all of you that it would be 300 hours for the year. It's going to be more than 500 now. But a lot of that will be electives. Don't worry. You don't have to watch me for 500 hours straight. For those of you interested in the MBA degree program to learn more, what you can do is just go to my website here, harounventures.com, and you can click here to apply to the next MBA degree program, which starts on this day here. And you can read all the FAQs and all that stuff right here. So if you have any questions about it, just go here and read up on it, please. But it's less than $1 per hour. So am I making money on this? No. Do I care? Not really. I just want to do it. It's just fun. Yeah. And the second I start doing all this stuff just for money is the second nobody should ever take any of my courses ever again. You know, if you chase money, you lose your dreams and your money. If you chase your dreams, as long as you're willing to fail a couple times at least, not only will your dreams come true, but the money will follow accidentally. It always does. Yeah. But don't ever make profit your primary motivation. Otherwise, you won't be happy. You know, nobody chasing money is happy in life. Okay. And Gregory, yeah, I do have a case study also, not just the Moore's Law, whatever, which I think I butchered a second ago, but also so Intel back in 1995, they released a Pentium processor that had a flaw in it. So if you did very complex, massive calculations, it might be 0.00001% off. And I bought that chip recently, and I'm using that for a case study I'm currently writing for my MBA degree students, and that lesson's gonna be out next month in March for my MBA students. But what happened was absolutely brilliant disaster control, so to speak, and PR from Andy Grove. What Andy Grove did, the late great CEO of Intel, and one of my favorite business books, you got to read it. It's called Only the Paranoid Survive by Andy Grove. But what Andy Grove did was he owned up to it right away. And he went on CNBC, Bloomberg TV, whatever, all the news stations all over the world in 1995 and said, here's the issue. We're sorry about it. We're going to give every customer a refund that requests it. And what happened was this. Not only did that transparency build an incredible amount of trust with customers and investors, but something more important happened as a byproduct of him being honest and doing these interviews. A lot of people never heard of Intel back in 1995. And all of a sudden, you've got this ethical guy on TV talking about an issue they had with Intel. And it was free PR. It was brilliant, or genius. Brilliant and genius at the same time. I don't know if that's a word. And then what happened was everybody knew what was inside a computer, Intel. So anyway, really, really smart on Andy Grove's part. Yeah. All right. And Ryan is saying, good morning, Chris. Good morning. I started a company that focuses on real human-to-human communications for business and have been focusing on improving real human-to-human conversation between private equity firms and investors. I'm interested in your thoughts on how to implement much better communication and less reliance on emails or other non-related conversation platforms. Thank you. Yeah. Whew. So I have my venture capital hat on now, and I'm actually literally. This is a prop for my MBA degree program, but if I put on my venture capital hat, the first thing I'd say about the business model is how scalable is it? And maybe you don't want to scale it, and that's cool, but I think is there a way to scale it faster? Using technology somehow instead of just real human to human interaction. Also, I think of a platform. The best venture capital investments in history are platform-based. If you own the road, you can charge the cars. Facebook is the quintessential social media platform. LinkedIn is an HR platform. iOS and Android are platforms as well. So if you're going to create a platform like online dating, maybe for H to H or humans to humans to interact with each other, make sure that there's barriers to entry so you actually own that platform, and so people can't take their business offline with each other. Like when I use Fiverr.com, Fiverr.com, to get my logos created and all this cheap stuff, they make sure that, and for those who are not familiar with Fiverr, it's a company based in Tel Aviv, which is awesome, where you can get anything done for basically $5 or a little bit more. But they ensure that you don't talk to each other off the platform. Like there's certain keywords if you enter in, like the word email or whatever, and it will flag it and say, hey, don't do business off our platform or we'll shut down your account or something like that. I'm totally paraphrasing, but make sure that there's something you can do so that on your platform, it's something automated so people cannot leave the platform and they got to stay there, because you want to create a marketplace. And the success of any marketplace is all based on how many people are using that market, like eBay, for example. So in terms of private equity firms and whatnot, I would think, and let me put on my let me put on my private equity hat now. So if I'm a private equity investor, I want to look at companies that are undervalued. So I do a lot of screening, and I would use all the biggest platforms in the world for screening. So maybe there's a way that on your platform you can somehow import SEC documents, and for ideas on how to do that, go to bamsec.com. That's BAMSEC.com. BAMSEC.com. And maybe on your platform, what you can do is you can ingest a lot of SEC information from SEC.gov on companies and do an automatic filter using some sort of AI process to find companies that are cash rich or trading close to book value, whatever it is. And that's how you can actually automate the platform if you want to, if that's something you're interested in. So, yeah. And if that didn't answer your question, please let me know, and I'm happy to provide more color on other alternative answers. Yeah. All right. Next up is Tien is saying, I have a great idea, and I'd like to raise a fund for it. Could you guide me next steps to start? As you suggest, first building network. Yeah. So I would, yeah. I don't think you should ever use your own money to start companies unless you have a bunch. I don't want you to put yourself, and I don't know your financial situation or anybody's. If you have a lot of money, that's great. But if you don't, I don't want you to put yourself and your family at risk and create a lot of undue stress at home. And so what you can do is approach high net worth investors and try to raise money from them. Don't do the VC route yet, unless your company is very, very much developed. And the reason I mentioned high net worth investors is because the sales cycle is relatively short, right? It can be a couple of meetings. And the way to find people that might want to invest in your company is find people on LinkedIn that have something in common with you. Maybe they're from the same school, same hometown, etc. And take my complete job course on Udemy. There's a lifetime money back guarantee on it. Not only will I teach you how to network, but I'll teach you how to get these meetings. Now, when it comes to raising money, what you can do is just go to my vlog. And every year for the past 5 years or whatever it is, there's this great business school in Paris called HEC. And they come to the Bay Area and I present to them. They always ask me, and they're great too. But if you go to YouTube, go to my YouTube page, and I gave an hour speech, and I think I put it online. I gave an hour speech, and in that speech, what I did was I taught them how to raise money. So here it is here. Yeah. So it's called How to Raise Money from Venture Capitalists or High Net Worth Investors. This is a presentation I gave a year ago, I guess, to HEC MBA students. So here it is here. And you know what I'll do is I'll copy this. Yeah, I'll copy this link and I'll paste it there in case you want to click on it within this webcast. So give me 1 second. Okay. There it is. Yeah. And I think for some reason, when I paste links here, you guys can all click on them. But when you paste links, it doesn't allow it to go through for whatever reason. I guess YouTube want to stop people spamming whatever products or whatever it is. So if you want to send a link to me, what you can do is you can actually just put the link here, but don't put in www.whatever.com. For the dots, type in DOT, and that's how this won't pick up on that. Yeah. All right. Give me 1 second. All right. Hold on, guys. All right. Vipul is saying, good morning, Chris. Good morning to you too. And you wrote, I just love the way you teach, Chris. Thank you. God bless you. You're an amazing teacher. Oh, thank you. When one teaches, two learn. It's always the case. Thank you. Thank you. Hope we'll meet in the future. Just let me know if you're going to have any meetups in India. Keep up the great work. Thank you. And God bless you. I appreciate that. Appreciate that. Thank you. I want to, for this MBA degree program, I want to do it so that, I've set it up so I can do everything remotely too. Sometimes you'll see me do my weekly webcast from different countries. I did it in Barcelona. I've done it in Germany, in Berlin. Actually, it was fun. I've done it all over the place. And so I want to start teaching and doing the MBA classes as well overseas. And I'd love to do a month in each country, longer term. So one country definitely will be India. I think it's 6% of my students on Udemy are from India. But about 20% of the traffic I get in my YouTube vlogs are from India, and you can track that as well. And so I got a soft spot for India. There's a business school I used to teach at during the evenings called the Halt International School of Business. And in 2016, they sent me to India just to give some speeches and stuff. And I went to Mumbai and to Delhi, and I loved it. Oh my God. And for those of you that haven't tried dosa, it's the best food you'll ever eat. Don't go to an Indian restaurant in America just to get the tandoori chicken and naan bread and all the great stuff. Ask for dosa. It's literally the most underappreciated product ever in the food industry. It's like the first time you eat a Krispy Kreme donut fresh out of the oven. It's that freaking good. And the restaurants that I loved in India, and you're going to laugh at me now, are the airport in Mumbai and Delhi. I went to Punjabi Grill in the airport, and that's where I had dosa, and it changed my life. It was amazing. Yeah. Now, I remember in Mumbai as well, there's a lot of wealthy people in Mumbai, but there's also millions of people that live in the slums. And that trip changed me because I remember when I took the taxi to my hotel, we drove through the slums, and I'll never forget seeing so many children, young, old people, so happy, smiles everywhere. They got nothing to lose. I loved that. That was kind of a life-changing trip for me. Yeah. All right. Next up, we got Siddharth, who's saying, "Hey, Chris, how are you? I'm great. Thank you. Hope you're doing well. I read about SteadySafe, which is an Indonesian cab company, and how they raised debt through U.S. bonds. Then the rupee, and the company went bankrupt. Don't they have exchange risk? Yeah. Or hedge funds have some limitations when government devalues currencies. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard, man. It's tough. It's tough. So a lot of big companies that operate globally, they'll have FX hedges in place. Like every time SAP would report earnings, which is a great big German company based in Waldorf, every time they would report earnings, I would look at the FX rate that they mentioned on the earnings call to see if, that's going to have an impact on earnings. And so I remember for SAP, when the euro was weak, it actually helped SAP's earnings a lot because they sold a lot of stuff in US dollars. But we would also ask management. And Leo Apotheker is a guy I met with in Waldorf, and I met with Henning Kagerman at the time, and Bill McDermott as well. But I remember I would meet with them, and I'm smiling because Henning Kagerman used to blink a lot, which cracked me up. But anyway, I would always ask them about their FX risk, and they either tell me what it might be or how to think about modeling it, or they would just say it's hedged. And so what that means is you get investment banks or your corporate finance department, if you're in a big company, to look at your exposure to different currencies and to use options to kind of hedge your risk. And that way you can kind of mitigate any sort of currency volatility. And a lot of companies do that hedging as well with when it comes to commodities. Like Southwest Airlines, great discount carrier in America with the ticker LUV, because their headquarters are Lovejoy Field. But what Southwest Airlines did was in the early 2000s, they looked at their business model and they thought the biggest input, the biggest expense we have is oil. Obviously, it's an airline. So they hedged oil. They hedged it and they created forward contracts to the extent that they could buy oil for only $30 a barrel for like a decade or whatever it was. And then oil prices spiked to $150 at one point, 2008. And it was destroying the airline industry, obviously. And so what Southwest did was they cut prices, which is really predatory if you think about it. It's aggressive. Business is war, as Sun Tzu would say. But they hedged in. They hedged the price of that commodity oil, and by the same token, a lot of companies do that with foreign exchange rates as well. Yeah, and you mentioned that this company went belly up through bonds they issued in the United States. So when a company is having financial problems and they restructure their debt and whatnot, the first people that get their money back are the debt holders, the bond holders. Then comes preferred shareholders. And the way to remember that is the shares are preferred. They get preferential treatment. And then the lowest of the low, the last people to get their money back, if ever, are common shareholders, because the shares they own are common. Right? That's how you remember it. So just remember that debt always has a senior claim, then preferred shares, then common stock down there. Yeah. All right. Give me 1 second here. This is my breakfast for anybody asking. Yeah. And my shakes, actually, which I've told you about over the past 76 weeks, how I make them. I started to make them without whey protein in it now. So when I make my 7 shakes on Sunday, I actually make them now with Greek yogurt. Not a lot, but some, and it tastes awesome. So I get fat-free organic Greek yogurt, really good, really high in protein. Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. And I've been putting in just a ton more cinnamon as well lately. It makes it taste a lot better. And there's greatest hits of every single antioxidant, meaning stuff that stops cancer, hopefully, in this thing. Every sound. It's just greatest hits for me. And I love it. I love it. And I've been putting in a ton more acai lately as well, which is a great South American fruit. Yeah. It gives you energy. Okay. And if I missed any questions in between, please let me know. All right. Next up is Himanshu saying, Sup, Himanshu, how are you? And Ashutosh is saying, I want to take the MBA in finance because I want to build my career in the share market. Is this a good decision or bad? Please give me information. Yeah. So you got to look at the end product. Like, what do you want to be longer term? So I always recommend writing down your 10-year goals. And for my MBA degree program, when you apply, and it costs nothing to apply, but in the essay, I ask you to write what are your 10-year goals, because I want to humbly help you if I possibly can get closer to achieving your goals. But for you and for everybody, myself included, you got to write your 10-year goals often. And then once you write your goals, you got to kind of step back and think, okay, there's where I want to be in 10 years. Here's where I am today. There's a gap. How do I fill that gap? And if getting an MBA will help you, then great. Otherwise, maybe don't do it. And you can also go to LinkedIn and find out people that went to certain schools, whatever, and where are they now, that sort of thing. And set up meetings with them and maybe ask them if it helped them to get a job or not. I humbly believe that relationships are more important than product knowledge, and that you don't need to get an MBA degree to be successful. And of course, I'm biased. I have my own program. I love it. It's fun. And my students are going to be very, very successful. But the most important thing is networking. Whether or not you have an education doesn't matter. All that matters in life, in business at least, are relationships. And anybody can set up networking meetings. And you can take my complete job course on Udemy. There's a lifetime money-back guarantee. And I promise you will get the job of your dreams or your money back. All right. And you can always find my courses if you're curious. And I just changed my website, but you can get the lowest prices. Let me go here. So when you go to my website, I've got a 9-course bundle for $50. 30-day money-back guarantee as well. You can take 9 of my courses for $50. Or you can apply to my MBA degree program if that's of interest to you, or you can get all of my courses on sale with a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you click this, these go to Udemy as well. So you click all these and they'll go, like if I go here, open an incognito window, it'll list all the courses here that you can get if you want. And this is my latest one. This one killed me. I loved it to death. I was obsessed with it. This one is 27 hours long. It was fun. It was fun. And actually, I really believe that when one teaches to learn, and so even like with this course here, and it said ratings 4.6. I think we dipped. We're 4.4. Yeah, ratings are dipping. With this one here, I taught with one of my students, actually. I met on this webcast in week 10. Her name is Sasha Stevenson. I've never met her. She's great, though. And she has over 100 million views in Indonesia on her YouTube channel. So we made this course together. But by making those 2 courses, what happened was I was able to teach myself better videography and better audio, whatever, all that good stuff, as well as using YouTube, which is what we're all using right now to make this webcast. And I really believe that the way to master anything in life is to teach. Teach that, because when one teaches to learn. All right, let's see what we got next. All right, Himanshu is saying, I'm a big fan of Chris. Thank you. I'm learning through his finance MBA networking courses. Thank you very much, Himanshu. I appreciate that. And I worked with a guy I remember at Accenture named Himanshu. And I mentored him. We were all assigned people to mentor. But good guy. Yeah. Okay. Ashutosh is saying, guide me about my MBA in finance. It's my good or bad decision. Yeah. So I'm trying to you got to tell me, first of all, Ashutosh, and I want to help, what you want to do in 10 years. What's your perfect life in 10 years? And then let me help you answer how to fill that gap. Yeah. But if you're doing an MBA in finance, make sure you're passionate about it. Make sure you love finance. You got to enjoy it. You have to enjoy it. Otherwise, what happens is you'll see it as a job and you'll never be happy. Like a lot of people on Wall Street are depressed, because every Christmas bonus season, they compare themselves to those that make more. And that's the cancer of Wall Street. And just make sure you enjoy finance. You got to love it. Otherwise, don't do it. And I read this great book by the Dalai Lama. And he said the problem with Western society is we sacrifice our health, our entire lives, in order to make money. Then at the end of our lives, we sacrifice all of our money to maintain our health. And then we look back and we realize we never really lived to begin with. So make sure that if you're going to study finance and go down that route, that you thoroughly enjoy it. You got to love it. Otherwise, you won't be happy. And Tian is saying, I have another question. How do you think about the future of artificial intelligence? Do you think it'll be good for the long run investments, in your opinion? Yeah. So whenever I think about the future and companies and sectors in the future, I ask myself a simple question, which is this. In 5 years, will this company or product or industry be more relevant than it is today? In 5 years, will it be more relevant than it is today? Absolutely will. AI definitely is the future. I really believe it. And just check out how we all use SIRI. I don't want her to wake up here. And we use Alexa. I don't want her to wake up here. Or Google Voice. You know, the operating system is morphing into something that's virtual. You can't see, feel, or touch it, but you can hear it. And that's probably the most helpful form of AI that we use on a consumer basis. So in 5 years, will people be using voice-based technologies more or less? Much more. Much more. And the holy grail for governments is software analytics and artificial intelligence to find patterns to make their countries better. And so I used to be an investor in a company called Palantir, which Peter Thiel invested in. Peter Thiel thinks it's going to be bigger than Facebook one day. I'm no longer an investor. I sold almost all my venture capital holdings. But Palantir is the biggest employer now in Palo Alto. And like bigger than Facebook now. And not many people have heard of them. And Palantir has this unbelievable artificial intelligence-based software product portfolio. They have products. One of them is called Gotham. And you know where they got that from. Yeah. And what Palantir does is, in the first notable investor in it was the venture capital division of the CIA. Good guys. I've met with them before. And we've co-invested in companies. But Palantir software will basically take a lot of data and find a pattern. And this is crazy what I'm about to say, but the Obama administration would never have found Osama bin Laden if they didn't use Palantir software. And a lot of banks use Palantir as well for cybersecurity reasons. And governments use it to solve problems like human trafficking, et cetera. So I think companies like that are going to be extraordinarily successful in the future. And I see it also with, like, I stopped using Facebook. Like, I'm still on there, whatever, but personally, I don't really post anything. But dude, it's crazy what Facebook has done with artificial intelligence when it comes to ads. Like, it's scary, actually, because if you're a Democrat, Facebook will put more Democrat stuff in your feed. If you're a Republican, Facebook will put more Republican stuff in your feed. And you won't even notice it a lot of times. A lot of times it's just videos, which don't bother most people, but it is what it is. And the issue with Facebook and AI is it's created this massive bifurcation in America. You know, America's at odds now. Yeah, more so than any point in history. Maybe the hippie movement in the 60s, people were more at odds with each other. But that's what Facebook has done to America. I really believe that. It's made it, if you're a Democrat, you're way more Democrat. If you're a Republican, you're way more Republican. And the country's at odds. And that's actually not a good thing, obviously. And I'm not even going to go down the Cambridge Analytics election rigging thing with Facebook. But if you get a chance, there's a guy named Sacha Baron Cohen. You guys all know him from Borat. And he gave a great speech, I think at was it ACLU or NAACP? I can't remember. But he talks about, and my goodness, is that guy well-spoken. And he doesn't want to do comedy as much anymore. Like, he just did, he did this amazing series you guys got to watch on Netflix called The Spy. And it's like 4 or 5 episodes. And it's a real story about this guy in the Mossad, which is the Israeli version of the CIA. This guy in the Mossad that was a spy in Syria in the 1960s. And he was such a good spy, they actually made him the Minister of Defense. Crazy story. But anyway, the acting is amazing by Sacha Cohen. He wants to do serious stuff too going forward, I think. But this speech he gave was it was unbelievable. And he talks about he calls it the Internet 6. Very controversial. And he's saying how the Internet 6 are destroying the world in terms of people being at odds with each other. And let me go, actually, I'm going to search for that speech and paste the link now because I think it really is interesting. And my goodness, is this guy brilliant the way he speaks. Let me go here to Sacha Cohen speech. Let's see here. Yeah. ADL. Okay. So it's it's at Fighting Hate for Good. He gave this speech at the ADL, and you guys can watch this speech here, and it's mind blowing how well this guy, how well spoken he is. He speaks good. So let me take this here, and they got rid of like dislike here, I guess, because it is very controversial. I think this is the speech here.
And then the next 12 months in the road.
It is an insanely great speech. And so what I'll do is I'll paste it here for you guys to check out. You can form your own opinion. Don't rely on me. All right. Let's see. Next up here. All right. Okay. Next up, you got somebody put PE ratio all in caps. And then after that, yeah. So, and then you wrote, why does Tesla not have a PE? I mean, it does if you think they're going to have earnings. Like if you build out your own financial model, which I teach about in my MBA degree program, which is actually what I'm recording tonight for classes coming up towards the end of February. I'll show you actually. So here's the model here on that we're creating, but it depends on if you think the company's going to have earnings. Like a lot of people think Tesla is going to have earnings and does have earnings already on a pro forma basis, meaning a non-GAAP basis. I can go there down that road if you want me to explain that. So a lot of people value Tesla based on price to earnings in the future. And so the smart money investors, the long-term investors, what they do is this. They look at companies. They create a financial model. They figure out what that company is going to make 5 or 10 years in the future. And that's why they think companies are cheap, that they love. Like for me, for years, I invested in Amazon and LinkedIn when it was publicly traded. It broke my heart when Microsoft bought them. But people would always ask me, in the hedge fund industry, they were like, Chris, you're crazy for investing in those companies. They're over 100 times earnings. And I would say, no, I'm not crazy. I'm right. Because in 5 years or so, these companies are trading at 4 times my earnings estimate. You always want to be very, very long-term focused. And a big widowmaker rookie mistake for new hedge fund investors is to short companies just because they're expensive. You got to look at fundamentals first. Yeah. All right. And so, Samir, when it comes to Tesla, just like with Amazon, the bet is that investors are making is that the founder is going to continue to innovate and add shareholder value. So if Elon Musk were to ever leave, or I should say Jeff Bezos, if he were to ever leave Amazon, investors would run for the exit. When you invest in Amazon, you put your full faith and credit support, so to speak, in the brilliant founder, Jeff Bezos. And you don't mind that the stock's expensive if you're a growth investor, because you know that if they wanted to have a PE of 3, they can tomorrow, but they'd have to fire all their salespeople and all their research and development folks and close some offices. Growth investors don't like that. Remember, there's 2 different types of investors. There's growth and value. Value investors like cheap stuff, right? Like Warren Buffett, that's not growing fast. Growth investors love expensive stuff that's growing fast. And they're completely at odds. And it's contentious. It's like religion, actually, or politics when they get in the same room together. And so you wouldn't see Warren Buffett buying Amazon, and you wouldn't see a growth fund manager buying value stocks. That's usually not the case. Yeah. All right. Melody wrote, you're right about being thick-skinned. When I worked at Daytech Online, oh, cool. I know you worked there. I would see the day traders screaming at each other. Then they would be cool with each other a day later. Yeah. Yeah. I guarantee you, Melody, that if you look up those day trader name, those people on LinkedIn or wherever it is, I guarantee you they're not trading anymore. Why? because there's no successful traders that make it in the long run. How do we know that? Because we don't know their names. People that trade are fooled by randomness. The worst thing that can happen is you start trading, you make money right away because it might give you this false sense of confidence. But the reality is that you can't make money longer term trading, because the reason stocks move in the short term is usually because of things outside your control. You can't predict, what people are going to say, or what saber rattling is going to go on between two politicians or trade wars or whatever it is. You can't predict that stuff. And every month has 20 weekdays, meaning 20 trading days. And you cannot make money every day and every month. And if you do, you're probably breaking the law, because statistically it's impossible. So, and that's, the government has cracked down a lot on hedge funds in terms of insider information, a lot, rightly so. I'm glad they have, because because of that, you'll notice that hedge fund performance has gone down a lot, right? They don't have the same edge they used to have. So just be long-term focused always when you invest, please. I think that I think if you're long-term focused, you won't do stupid things like and when I say you, I'm talking to me and everybody. You won't do dumb things like selling stuff when it goes down. And Warren Buffett, he said it. He's prophetic as always. He said that the New York Stock Exchange is the only store in the world where consumers sell stuff when it goes on sale. Think about that. Selling something you like because it's cheaper. You got to be long-term focused. You got to tell yourself, like one of my employees used to at my hedge fund, brilliant guy, I don't know the path, but I know the destination. You pick a long-term target price and just, be a pit bull and a pork chop on it. And always do an investment right up first. And if you're curious on how to do that, just take one of my finance courses, because I teach all that stuff. Okay. And then there's a question from Himanshu saying, how debt equal credit? I don't understand the question. I'm sorry. If you want, you can rephrase it if you'd like to. If you want me to talk about debits and credits when it comes to accounting, I can go there. In the old days, people used to learn accounting that way. And when you think of debits and credits, just think of a balance sheet. Always has to balance, right? That's one of my props there. But if the question was something else, please just make it bigger. Thanks. Okay. And then Melody wrote, Chris, thank you so much. I cannot tell you how much this has helped our family. My pleasure. My pleasure. I'm happy to be here. And if I can humbly make a difference, it makes me happy. In fact, I actually get a little bit depressed every day if I don't help someone somehow. That's why I love teaching. I love it. And my DNA, the way I'm made up, is different from other people, maybe because of that. I just, it's my version of Prozac. It's just helping people, so to speak. It sounds out there, but anyway, I don't know. And I think a lot of people are like that too. Like if you have $1 and I don't know, you go to the store and you buy a Coke or whatever, it'll bring this much happiness, a little bit. But if you give that $1 away, it'll bring this much more happiness to you. That sort of thing. Yeah. And then Gregory's saying, GE is a great business case study. I agree. It's awesome. Yeah. And then next up, Melody is stating, Chris, you're right about knowing a stopping point. I use checklists and say, I want those points on the sheet, so I just stop. But I think work never really stops, but we all need a break. Absolutely. Absolutely. And like the core tenets or framework, I should say, for many great religions are 10 rules. One of them of which is you got to rest one day a week. And our foremothers and forefathers have known for thousands of years that burnout is deadly. So you got to take that one day off per week if you can. Yeah. All right. Next up, Miles is saying, the MBA with Chris, you wrote, you're loving it. Thank you. We've had a lot of fun so far. It's been great. It's been fun. Yeah. I made mistakes though. And I'm so grateful my students have patience with me. Like, as I mentioned, I had a problem with the audio last week during one of the Q&A sessions. That will never happen again. I've got another microphone up here. It's a Blue Yeti Nano. So just in case we got backup. So thank you everybody for your patience. Okay. Uh, and Maz is writing cash in, cash out. One banana, three shakes. Equity equals assets plus liability. Totally. And it's funny. It's funny because that's the way I taught it. In one of my classes for my MBA degree students, I actually brought in, it's a little crazy, but it works. And I don't care if my students laugh at me as long as they learn. That's all I care about. So one class, I brought in a blender, a carton of milk, 3 glasses, and a banana. And what I did was I said, this is one banana. 1. It looks like the number 1. And for the rest of your lives, I want you to think about formulas as having 1 banana on the bottom. Hear me out. Then what I did was I took that 1 banana and I put it in the blender and I poured in a bunch of milk. And I blended it. And I then took the blender and I poured into 3 glasses. There's 3 glasses, three milkshakes. And I created a ratio. I said for every 1 banana on the denominator, we have 3 milkshakes on the numerator. 1 makes 3. And so when you look at price to earnings, the denominator is earnings and the numerator is price. So for every $1 in earnings, how much are people willing to pay for that $1 PE? If it's 10 times, then for every $1 in earnings, investors are paying 10 times for that $1, that 1 banana. You know, for price to revenue, for every $1 in revenue, denominator, investors are willing to pay 20 times if it is a 20 times PR multiple. And think about that every time you see other formulas too, like gross profit margins or anything in finance or return on equity or whatever it is. Just think of the denominator. So return on equity means for every $1 in ownership you have in a company, you know, what do they make? That sort of thing, the net income. It's a great way to think about it. Yeah. And then the cash in, cash out. That's right. I wore a hat one day that said cash in, cash out when I was teaching about the cash flow statement. Because the cash flow statement is, you got to think about it a different way. You know, does cash go up or down with each line item? Yeah, that was fun. We had fun making that. And I also, and my MBA degree students saw me actually burn I got electrocuted almost. When I was burning in those onto those income statement boxes there, there was a shock and I blew a fuse and I freaked out and I left that in. Hopefully you guys laughed at it. It was fun. Okay. Okay. Thanks guys for the feedback on the microphone. Okay. So this one it's clear, but not as loud. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Thank you. And this is the other microphone I was using before. Okay. So I will bring it closer then. And if you guys don't mind, actually, I'll do it later. I was going to ask you guys for more help, but I'll do it tonight by myself. Thank you for that. Okay. Melody's got a joke. What do you call a toothless bear? A gummy bear. I like that. I can tell my kids that too. Why do they call it a toothbrush? Like, is it for people with only one tooth? Like, why doesn't they call it a teeth brush? The English language is so messed up. Thank you, Gregory, for that. Appreciate it. Okay. Melody's saying one more. What do you give a sick bird? A special tweet mints. Oh, I like it. I like it. I'll tell my mom and dad that one too. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, and Heathens Nation Music, or HNM, is saying that hat looks weird. The one I had before, like it's a firefighter hat on asset. Yeah. I used to go to HMV when I was a kid to buy CDs. And HMV, I don't know if it's still around. It is British. And HMV stands for His Majesty's Voice. It's interesting. All right, Himanshu is saying, hey, Chris, I have a question. Is the GMAT seriously necessary to get into an MBA? And then you wrote, I think GMAT's a waste of time and money. It's basically better to learn real business maths than school maths. What do you think, Chris? Please let me know. Thanks. Yeah, I do think that the GMAT is a little ridiculous. I don't think it really has. I mean, it might screen out some people based on their ability to write or whatever it is. But it's a game. And you don't have to be smart to do well on it. I did really, really well, only because I studied harder than anybody else on the planet for it. And I work hard. But I learned a lot of tricks. And I'll share a trick with you right now. It's going to help you on the GMAT if you write it. You don't need the GMAT to get into my MBA degree program. But, and I'll never register with any government agency. No government agency can ever tell me what I can teach or cannot teach in my MBA degree program. So I'm not going to do that accredited thing ever, ever, ever. Yeah. And you'll never find a lower priced or better MBA degree program. I am biased. But when you're writing the GMAT or any tests in general, and for my students in my MBA degree program, there's a quiz after every class. And I hate the fact that I'm saying this because now you guys are going to all do much better in the quizzes. But I got to a point where I was studying for the GMAT where I could get the right answer a lot of the times without reading the question. And the way to do that is as follows. So if it's a multiple choice question, when you answer the question, you got to put on a hat that says lawyer, and you have to think like a lawyer. And so little things like if you ever see the word always or never in a multiple choice answer, those are wrong. Always. Why? Well, I can look at this microphone here and I could say the color of this microphone is always black. And a lawyer could say, no, it's not. What if it's a different shade of gray? What if the light touches it a different way and it looks actually like light gray? So if you ever see the word always or never, those are always wrong. But if you see wishy-washy answers, like on many occasions or sometimes this black microphone appears light gray, those are right. Wishy-washy answers, like sometimes, in many occasions, but answers like always and never are always wrong. All right. And then Heathens Nation is saying, Chris, have you read Ray Dalio's Principles? I started last week, and it's almost overwhelming. Any tips on retaining information from large books? Yeah. I know about that. I actually have it. I never finished it. So Ray Dalio, for those who aren't familiar with him, he's a billionaire. He runs the biggest hedge fund in the world called Bridgewater in Connecticut. And because there's no filter here ever, I'm going to tell you what it's like to work at Bridgewater. So I have a lot of friends that work there. And it's one thing they do that's really uncomfortable. And look, they've been successful. I get it. But one thing they do that's really uncomfortable is every single meeting, without exception, is recorded. And all employees know that, except in the bathroom. I'm not joking. Like Fonzie's office. Did anybody get that joke? Fonzie's office? No? Okay. Happy Days? That was a show I watched 8 million years ago. But every single meeting is recorded. And this is hearsay, but I have friends that work there that say the turnover, meaning employees leaving, is 40% every year. I'm sure that's exaggerated, but it's kind of tough to work in a company where you're so careful about every word you say that you're never relaxed if every meeting is recorded. So, and the Principles book, and I've had some of my portfolio companies when I worked in venture capital, went over there to basically try to get them as a customer. And one guy brought back, the head of sales in one of the companies I was on the board of, brought back this little black book called Principles. And it's a little black book that's given out to all employees of Bridgewater with principles. And I think it's good to kind of have some sort of regimented process when you're managing money. But the whole corporate culture side of recording every meeting, except in the bathroom, it's true, makes me feel a little uncomfortable. Yeah. Okay. And Melody wrote, I go to TikTok as well to get a good laugh. I love it. Dude, it is hysterical. Like my youngest son, and I'm careful what he watches too. He's 10, right? But he's got TikTok, and he introduced me to it, the app, and it is hysterical. It's so fun. Like when I'm bored sometimes, whatever, I'll actually just watch 2 videos that take like 5 or 10 seconds each, and some of them just crack me up big time. Kind of like when I worked in the hedge fund industry, when companies were reporting earnings and I had to wait for earnings to be reported, I'd always go to Pinterest and search for jokes and just look at kind of funny images. Yeah. And Gregory said, TikTok is an incredible Chinese application. I love it. It's fun. Okay. All right. And Tian said, you saw the email. Good. Thank you. Regarding the download of my book, my free book. Thank you. Awesome. Okay. Yeah, no, Harris is saying by IRR you meant internal rate of return. I've never really I've looked at IRR. I don't really get it, to be honest. I don't NPV. I get it totally. IRR, I just don't I just don't get it. So I don't teach it. It's kind of like when I worked in the hedge fund industry, people would always say, "What's your Sharpe ratio?" And I just don't get it. So there's certain things in business I just don't use. That's one of them. Like supply and demand graphs, I'll never teach that because nobody uses that stuff. But yeah. But no, I think if you work in private equity, you might look at IRR closely, and maybe I'll teach it. I don't know. I just don't. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Let's say next up is it's kind of like there's some words in English I just don't get, so I never use them. Like the word apprehensive or apprehension. I don't get it. Like people have explained it to me. I just don't get it. It's kind of like in hockey, and I'm Canadian. This is embarrassing. But when I watch hockey, I don't know the difference between icing and offside. And people have explained it to me over and over and again for years. I just don't get it. It's just too complicated for me. I love to keep things simple. Yeah. And then let's see here. Next one is Ocean. Hey, Ocean is saying, "Hi, Chris. Hey, have you ever been to China?" I have multiple times. How do you think of the future in business of China? Sorry, this might be a broad question. No, I love the question, actually. I've always been bullish on China. Always, always, always. Even when I lived in Ottawa briefly, when I was working at Accenture back in 1994, I think it was either at Carleton or University of Ottawa. No, it was University of Ottawa. I took a night class on Mandarin. And dude, it was, oh my God, it's so hard. Like, I think if you're going to learn Mandarin, you got to learn it when you're a baby. Because you have to look at the way your tongue is placed in your mouth, and a bunch of sounds sound identical to me, but they're completely different. It's like Japanese. When you mentioned the company Rakuten, a lot of us know what that means. But I always got corrected when I was in Japan. People say, no, Rakuten. It's just hard. But I'm bullish on China in the long run. And I believe that Chinese communists are the best capitalists. And I think the Chinese government's doing the right thing, switching from communism to capitalism very slowly, because if it's done too quickly, it becomes like Russia. So I think they're doing it. They have kind of more manageable growth. But I do think that the biggest risk right now with China is just social unrest. And I'm not going to go there with the coronavirus at this point. But like if you look back at Tiananmen Square in 1989, and that hero that stood in front of that tank, like nobody knows that guy's name. Oh my God, I'm getting shivers just thinking about it. But the Tiananmen Square uprising in 1989 is the tip of the iceberg. If China is not careful. And I think there's going to be a food shortage in China at some point in our lifetimes. And that could lead to a huge amount of civil unrest if it's not handled properly. So everybody has cameras on their cell phones now, and you can't hide civil unrest anymore. You can't cover it up. But no, I am bullish on China longer term. I really am. And I think that China, what they're going to do is they realize how reliant they are on the United States, and how the United States and China are attached at the hip. And I guess what's represented of this is what happened in 2008. The Chinese government held a lot of U.S. bonds, and they were worried about that investment, but they had to invest more. Why? Because about one third of the revenue of the world, meaning GDP, is United States economy. 2/3 of the U.S. economy is consumer spending. So China's biggest customer is the U.S. consumer. And that's a risk for China right now, and they don't like that dependence. And so what China's trying to do is they're trying to build up their own consumer market internally in China, so they're not as reliant on the United States or other countries that buy their products. I think they'll figure it out. I think they will. It's amazing the innovation I'm starting to see coming out of China now. Like I used to think that, China has 10 times more PhDs than the United States do, but there's not much innovation. I'm starting to see it now. Like in the camera market, in audio market, and it's unbelievable. There's that company DJI. They make drones, which I think will be illegal one day. Drones. They make drones. They make cameras that are almost as good as GoPro now. They make gimbals. They make a lot of great equipment that I buy. And it's not a matter of what drone you're going to buy. It's a matter of what DJI drone you're going to buy. And just a ton of technology stuff I buy now comes right from China. And it's not just made in China. They're actually Chinese companies. So the innovation is starting to really, really kick in, which is awesome. Yeah. But I have invested in a lot of Chinese companies. I've been there on business. I've been to Shanghai. I've been to Beijing. In Shanghai, I met with a number of software companies, Shanda and The Nine, which was a company that did the infrastructure and hosting for World of Warcraft when it was a big deal years ago. And I remember when I was in that meeting, I remember asking Shanda and The Nine and the other video game companies I met with in Shanghai, I remember asking, why is it that in China, computer-based gaming is a big deal, but not in America? This was back in 05 or 06, whatever it was. And the answer was fascinating. They said the reason that computer gaming is bigger in China is because for many years, and this is no longer the case, but for many years, China had a policy of one child per family. And so for me, after dinner, growing up in Mississauga in Canada, I would play with my brother and sisters. But for a lot of families in China, if they had one child, then that child didn't have brothers or sisters to play with. So what they would do is they would go online and socialize through computer gaming, which is fascinating. Yeah. No, but I am and I got to say, like, the Chinese government has kind of done a good job of staying outside of global politics for the most part. And there are exceptions. They're not trying to be the world's police. They kind of kept themselves, and they basically focusing on heads down, grow the country fast. And if you go to countries like Rwanda, where I'm going actually at the end of this year with one of my MBA degree students at Vital, we're gonna build a school there for free. But if you go to countries like Rwanda, you'll see that all the roads are beautifully paved now because the Chinese, there's a lot of Chinese companies in Africa, mining resources. And it's just a big force to be reckoned with. And I do think that by around 2040 or so, Chinese GDP will be bigger than America's. It will. It definitely will. Unless there's some crazy revolution or whatever it is. And God willing, they keep what's going on in Hong Kong under control. And I'm a big proponent of human rights. So you obviously know where I stand there. But no, I'm very bullish. And China's fascinating. Like it's an unbelievable economy. I remember when I met with the CFO of United Technologies, UTX is the ticker, years ago when I used to invest in cyclical stocks. And he told me, and I asked about longer term trends, and he told me at that point in time, I think it was like 2007, he said, Chris, in the next 5, and by the way, UTX, United Technologies, they own something called Otis Elevator. So whenever you take an elevator, if you look down in the ground, you might see Otis written there. But he told me that in the next 5 years, China is going to build more buildings than the cumulative total of all buildings ever made in every country since the beginning of time. And he also shared another interesting statistic, which is this. Every single year, the Chinese government builds out and deploys and implements a new electricity grid infrastructure in different parts of the country every year. And that infrastructure they create that year is bigger than all the electricity grid infrastructure that you see in the United Kingdom. Massive, like strength in numbers. Yeah, it's an incredible economy. And if you believe, like, I love investing in scarce products. Like my grandfather used to tell me, God bless him, he's no longer with us, but he used to say, Chrissy, buy land. They're not making it anymore. And so I like to invest in natural resources longer term because there's a scarcity of it. And China has this unquenchable thirst when it comes to natural resources. And even here, actually, like where I live in this town in California called Hillsborough. And there's a lot of houses. Like there's a big house over here, way bigger than my house over here that nobody lives in. And another one over here nobody lives in. It's because these really wealthy Chinese families own them. And they keep them in great shape, but nobody lives there. It really is incredible. And I think it's kind of a hedge also for people that live in China, just in case, politically speaking, they stop moving towards capitalism. They own property elsewhere. And the same thing in British Columbia, the great province, une autre belle province on the left coast in Canada, British Columbia. A lot of Chinese investment as well. And it's a hedge for them just in case. Yeah. But no, I am bullish on China longer term. Very bullish. And I think eventually, like, it's so crazy if you think about it. Why is there only 2 airline companies in the world, like big airline companies? There's EADS, which makes Airbus, which is basically a bunch of countries in Europe trying to work together, despite their differences. And then in America, of course, there's Boeing. And then you got smaller ones like Bombardier in Canada, and then just small companies in South America make airplanes too. But it's so capex intensive to make these things. I get it, but I think it's only a matter of time until at some point in all of our lives, when we start to get on airplanes to travel, it won't just be you're on an Airbus or a Boeing. It'll be a Chinese company as well. And that's a good thing because competition is good for the consumer. Always, always, always. It's good for the airlines. But I'm very bullish on China longer term. And there's a great book I read years ago called A Bull in a China Shop. And let me go show it. I think you'll enjoy it if you care about commodities. So let me just go here to Amazon. Hey, Sasha. And let's go A Bull in a China Shop. Let's see here. It's a book. Hold on one second. Let me see if I can find it. Maybe I'll go over here to. Yeah, I don't know. But there's this brilliant investor that wrote this book. Maybe it's just a Bull in China book. Let's try this. Here it is. Yeah, here it is. Here, yeah. Okay, good. So it's by Jim Rogers. Okay, and it's called A Bull in China, Investing Profitably in the World's Greatest Market. Make sure we're still recording. Good. Yeah, so check out this book. I think you'll enjoy it. It's a little bit too bullish, to be honest, too positive, but it's a great read. It really is a great read, and I've invested in a lot of Chinese companies. But I actually don't feel comfortable, and I have been burned before from an accounting perspective, investing in some Chinese companies. I'm not trying to stereotype here. It is what it is. There's this investment bank called Roth, which I'll never do business with again. And through them, I bought a bunch of Chinese companies, and I kind of felt like I was duped. So anyway, I'll never do business with Roth. Yeah. But just be careful when it comes to accounting that you feel comfortable. Yeah. All right. Gregory's saying, discovering your fears and trying to overcome them is difficult but very helpful. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. And then Himanshu is saying, Chris, my idea of getting an MBA is not to get employed by companies. Cool. Yeah, tell me what you want to do though, like 10 years out, and I'll humbly opine or give you my thought process on what might make sense or not. Yeah. All right. Okay, next up is, what is a leverage buyout? So a leverage buyout, which is, some people call it an LBO, leverage buyout. It's a way to take on more debt, borrow money, and buy the whole company and take it private. That's an LBO. Leverage because you're taking on debt to lever yourself. And that's what private equity firms do. They take on a lot of debt to buy a company. And there's something called an MBO, which stands for management buyout, which is kind of what happened with Nabisco, which is the National Biscuit Company back in the 80s. And for more details on that and a great read you'll enjoy, read a book called Barbarians at the Gate. Yeah. All right. Heathens Nation is saying the game rules. I just had to find the cheat codes. You guys are all, and Melody's making comments here about that awful ET game. If you're just joining us in the webcast, we looked at the ET game online, which is what pushed the video game sector into bankruptcy in the 80s and inventory bad. They made hundreds of thousands of these things, and they had to bury them in the desert. And it caused the Atari Corporation to go belly up back in the 90s. Yeah. Or pardon me, in the 80s. Yeah. All right, next one is Adarsh is saying, hi, Chris. I'm a 21-year-old from India. What will be your 3-year advice for people like me for a better future? Yeah. So I would just do what you love doing. And if there's people in your life, read between the lines here if you want to. But if there's people in your life that want you to be an engineer or a lawyer or whatever it is, only do it if it makes you happy. You know, there's no point in being someone else's prisoner in your mind or feeling kind of trapped that you have to do something. Do what makes you happy. And if you do what makes you happy career-wise, then like Confucius said, you'll never have a job for the rest of your life. So just find out what you're passionate about. And the ways to tell are as follows. You know, what would you do for free? Or if I gave you a month off today and you can't work, and you can't go to school, and you can't travel, what would you do with your time? That might be your purpose in life. Do something you love doing. And just tell yourself, I just don't care what people think. You know, I'm not telling you to be rude or disingenuous to parents or anybody. But just, you got to tell yourself, I don't care. This is my life. I'm going to do what I want to do. And if I fail a lot, great. Because as Michael Jordan said, and I think I have the picture up on the wall here. Might be tough to read, but it's up there. He said, I failed over and over and over again, and that's why I succeed. But you just got to say, I'm going to fail. I'm going to try things. And I don't care what people think. I'm going to be me. So you do you. You be you. You find your own purpose and passion in life. You know, nobody can do it for you. And don't let anybody influence you to do one sort of career over another one. Like with my kids, I've never told them what I want them to be. It's their life. I just want them to be confident, happy, go to church as well, whatever. But just have the confidence to do something they love doing. That's it. That's it. And you got to tell yourself, I just don't care what people think. You do. Because if you want to be successful in business, you only have to be right one time. But along the way, you're going to fail a lot. And every great entrepreneur we know has failed more times than all of us have combined. You just have to be right in business one time. So follow your heart, and the rest of your life will fall into place. All right. And John is saying, what do you think about options trading? Tread carefully? Question. Yeah. So I would rather my students, if they're going to transact and bet against companies, I'd rather you buy puts than short stocks. Because when you short stocks, the loss is unlimited if the stock goes up to infinity, whatever. But with puts, all you do is you invest this much money. If the stock goes down, great, you make money. If the stock goes up, you only lose this much money. So I think that, like when I used to run a diversified hedge fund portfolio, I would look at puts a lot as well, just as a way to neutralize my book, so to speak, because my investment mandate was I couldn't be more than, say, 30 or 40% net long. And in some firms I worked at, it was 10 to 15% long on a beta adjusted basis, right? So I would look at options, right? Not too much, because I love to keep investing simplistic always, which is why I don't talk about IRR. That stuff's just way over my head. Less is more. So if you're going to use options, I prefer that you just buy stocks and hold forever in companies you've done research on. But if you're going to do options, maybe you buy calls on companies that you absolutely love as a way to kind of juice your returns. But every penny you invest in options, just make sure it's money you can afford to lose. Kind of like you walk into a casino and you never use the ATM there ever. But you walk into the casino, maybe you'll bring a little bit of cash. I don't gamble, except for the Wheel of Fortune things. I love those for some reason. I play with my mom when I was a kid. Those are fun. The one-armed bandit. But if you walk into a casino, if you bring cash, just tell yourself, if I lose this, that's it. I'm not going to go out and get any more cash. Yeah. And when it comes to options, like, don't try to understand stuff like Black-Scholes, like complex option strategy. Just kind of, I don't know, like, just understand directionally what it all means. Because if you try to disaggregate the mathematics of it, it just gets really confusing. Yeah. All right. And Colin is saying, hey, Chris, hope all is well. Likewise. What advice can you give to somebody who was fired for poor performance? What should one tell a prospective employer at an interview without being untruthful? Yeah. And you're right. It'd be nice if you can do a vlog on this. Yeah. Let me think about this. So, you want to be upfront always. And you want to make sure that if it happens to you, and it happened to me before, that you leave on good terms, because that's your reference. And if you didn't leave on good terms, then make sure you have a buddy that works at that company that can be a reference for you. Okay. And you don't have to lie and say that was my boss, but just, what I'm getting at. And then maybe even have your buddy, if he or she is a good friend, to write a recommendation for you on LinkedIn while you're at that company. Yeah. Or about that company. But no, you gotta bring it up. You gotta bring it up, Colin. You gotta mention it. But there's always a way to take, and I call it a straw dummy of an argument, because if you think of a scarecrow, it's just a straw dummy. It's not real, right? It's a weak argument. So, what you can do is you can kind of create a weak argument if it's true, and then just beat it up. Like, you could say something like this. Well, I was part of the reason why, and it was a mutual decision, or whatever, if it was, is I wasn't passionate about that industry. My real passion is X. And let's assume you're interviewing with a company right now to do a slightly different skill. It's X. I've always been much more passionate about X. And I realize that. And here's why I'm incredibly passionate about X. Yada, 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 whatever. Just give lots of examples. So and a lot of people got fired because they weren't doing what they were passionate about. I mean, you're in great company. Great company. I don't know if I'm great company, but I am company. Like Madonna. She got fired by Dunkin' Donuts. Michael Bloomberg got fired by, I think it was Merrill Lynch. And he certainly got his revenge. Robert Redford, the great actor, and it's so sad he's not doing movies anymore. He's awesome. He got fired from an oil company. There's so many great people that got fired. So many great people. Even like with Steve Jobs, when he was working at, I think, Activision in the early days, they wouldn't let him work the day shift. So they kind of said work the night shift only. So he was kind of fired from the day shift, so to speak. And we can talk about why if you want. Actually, screw it, I'll tell you. He wouldn't shower forever, right? So he smelled. So you have to shower, okay? And all he ate was carrots. So his skin actually turned orange. Kind of funny, whatever. But he's a much better businessman I'll ever be, obviously. So I can't diss him. But so many people have gotten fired. And they look back in hindsight, and they're probably grateful it happened. You might not understand it now, but years from now, you look back and say, that was a turning point for me, and I'm glad it happened. So, yeah, I would just kind of say that it's something you weren't incredibly passionate about. You've got great references, though, and list those references to your friends, whatever, or your boss, hopefully. But you can kind of use that straw dummy of an argument of, I'm way more passionate about skill X, which is the company you're interviewing with hypothetically right now, and list lots of examples of why. Okay. Really, really important. Yeah. So, and Colin, if you want, you can provide me some more details on that. And I'll like on what job it was without naming the company, just the industry. And then let me know what you're more interested in doing, as part of Colin 2.0. as you reinvent yourself. But it's so weird. Like sometimes things happen in life, business wise, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is so unfair. And then you look back years later and you're so grateful to God it happened. You'll see. Like Jay-Z, for example, he could not get a recording contract. Nobody would sign him up. And he actually was a drug dealer for a while just to pay the bills. Terrible, but he was. And in hindsight, he's probably grateful that no recording company would sign him up because he said, screw it. I'm going to start my own company. And Colin, if I can humbly help you start your own company, let me know, please. Yeah, that's why I'm here, to humbly help you if I can. Yeah. And Colin, take my complete job course. And if it doesn't get you your next job in an industry you're more passionate about, I give you a lifetime guarantee. So go to Udemy and take that course. I promise you it'll help. I guarantee it. Or your money back. Nobody does that. Nobody says a lifetime guarantee on a course. And I'm not doing this for the money. Just trust me, it works. I promise you, I guarantee you. If you do what I tell you to do in that course, you will get the job of your dreams or your money back forever. And what we start off with, Colin, in that MBA degree, in that course, the complete job course, is once you jump in, you jump right into the fire right away. I put you on the spot. It's good though, because what I do is I have you immediately address your weaknesses. Immediately. And in that course, I teach you how to turn your biggest perceived weakness into your biggest strength. Okay, so Deba Brada is saying, sir, Chris, please. I'm an MBBS doctor from India and wanted to pursue a career in orthopedics. But in the entrance exam, I'm getting ENT. What should I do? Should I drop a year to prove my passion do ENT as a career? Should I drop a year to pursue my passion or take ENT as a career? Yeah. So I would just do what you're most passionate about in life. If you're passionate about medicine and being a doctor, go for it. My brother and my father, they're doctors. They're radiologists, which means they fix radios. So if you're happy doing that and it brings joy to your life, then do it. Otherwise, don't do it at all. Follow what you're passionate about. And there's also there's this incredible woman named Angela Yu. She is awesome. And she was a doctor and she just wasn't happy being a doctor. So what she started doing, she was like, screw it. I'm just going to teach. And so where she's probably down here somewhere. Here she is here. Yeah. She's awesome, man. She said, I just want to teach. I kind of like technology. And she teach it. Look at her ratings, man. Dude, no one will ever get ratings like she has. She blows all of us out of the water. It's amazing. She's inspiring. But she's a doctor. And she's like, you know what? I'm more passionate about programming. And so she learned how to code. Now she teaches about it, which is cool. And I respect that tremendously. So the best way I can answer your question is do what you are most passionate about in life. If you chase money, you'll lose your dreams and your money. If you chase your dreams, as long as you're willing to fail a couple of times, not only will they come true, and they always do, if you're willing to fail, but the money will follow eventually accidentally. So you got to figure it out. You got to figure out what makes you happy. What would you do on vacation? Or what would you do for free? What do you love doing? That's what I would say. All right. And then you wrote, how can a doctor benefit from your MBA course? So I'll teach you about business from scratch. Everything you need to know. Everything. Yeah. And so for my MBA degree students so far, we're more than 2 months in now. Their resumes are awesome. Their LinkedIn profiles are awesome. Their networking skills are off the chart. And their finance and accounting skills are almost perfected. I need until, if anyone's watched this from the MBA degree program, and we all have our office hours at 11:15 today, but for anyone from my MBA degree program, I've decided that we're going to do a couple more financial modeling classes, and those will end on the 18th of February. Yeah. But if you're interested in learning more about the MBA degree program, just go to my website. There's a really long FAQ, Haroun Education Ventures, or harounventures.com. It always gets forwarded to the right website anyway. And we're accepting applications now. I'll show you. And then the next cohort will start December 14th, I think. So if we go here to my website, yeah, you can click here to apply. And yeah, and there's very, very long FAQ here if you want to read up on the program and all that stuff, right? But it's a good deal, man. It's like it's $499, and you get more than 500 hours. It's less than an hour per, yeah. So it's totally worth it. It's fun, and clearly I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it because I love it. All right. Okay, and then Gregory's saying, thanks, Chris, for the answer on Moore's Law. It's interesting. You're most welcome. And Vishal is saying, did I late, sir? No, there's no early or late on this call. This is, yeah. Okay, so Rishab is saying, hello, sir. I want to become an entrepreneur, and I have many ideas. I want to implement them now. But my family wants me to complete my studies first because I'm very good in studies. I'm confused. And you wrote, I'm 19 years old now. Yeah. I mean, I think you can do both at the same time. You know, like maybe if you're not sure what you want to do in life, I would finish school if you're not sure. In terms of your business model, what I recommend doing is I have a course called the Complete Business Plan course on Udemy. And if you go to my website, harounventures.com, scroll down, you'll see it right here. And it will teach you, I'll help you create a business plan. And the goal is by the end of that course, you'll be able to decide by making your own business plan. I help you out with tons of free stuff in it too. You'll be able to decide if you should start that company or not. Yeah. So check that out. And there's a 30-day money-back guarantee with all my courses. Yeah. But there's no reason you can't do both, right? Like you can have a side hustle as well, which means on the side you do something else, like your other company. And if you work for somebody else, and this is going to everybody in this call, if you work for somebody else and you hate your job and you have that entrepreneurial itch and you don't know what to do, take my Complete Business Plan course and start businesses on the side. And once your trailing 6 months earnings from that company is greater than the entire year's earnings you'll make at another company, quit. Yeah. Yeah. I rarely swear, but I'm going to now. There's nothing worse than spending the rest of your life being someone else's bitch. And if you're frustrated at work and you hate it, do something about it. You know, you take my Complete Job course, get a new job, or more importantly, take my Complete Business Plan course so you can start your own company. Yeah. So every time you want to complain about how much you hate your job, just, interview for another job. Take my Complete Job course or start your own company. Take my Complete Business Plan course. They all help. They all help. I promise you, or your money back. All right. Joe is saying, morning, Chris. Morning, Joe. How are you, man? All right, hold on a second. Okay. Vishal is saying, can you please explain the 2008 economic crisis and the 9/11 terror attack on the world's economy? Yeah. So, and I've done a lot of vlogs on this. So you can search if you want. But 2000. So both events, what happened in 01 and 08, were, people refer to them as black swan events. That, events that were just, no one expected any of those to happen. And what happened was 9/11 kind of helped to push the U.S. economy into a recession. And the U.S. economy was overheated at that point anyway. And the market was overvalued. The market peaked in March of 2000 and sold off for a couple of years after that. And I think it kind of got us out of that. It kind of caused the market to sell off more so. And then we found a floor, obviously, and the economy did as well. So that's I don't really have much more insight into 9/11 other than that. It was this awful event that, really hurt the economy, obviously. And more importantly, though, thousands of people passed away. It was tragic. But I will say I do give the government credit, the Bush administration, as well as the Obama administration and the Trump administration, for protecting America, because, thank God, knock on wood, there hasn't been another incident. So I'll give credit when credit's due. And a lot of people beat up Trump, and I get it. But you got to give the guy credit for catching, the head of ISIS. That was amazing. So, the byproduct of 9/11, and I'll never forget this. I worked at Goldman Sachs and I saw the whole thing. I worked on basically the top floor of the most southern building in New York. We lived, it was awful. I lost clients, and this woman, Nauka Kushtani's son, she was my client. She died. It was awful. It was terrible. And I even forgot what I was going to say next. I forgot. But I remember at Goldman, I worked at Goldman. They were good to us. They actually brought in therapists, and we all had to go through group therapy together. They were great. They were great. Yeah. But I remember, now I do remember what I was saying. Sorry. When I went back to work, like after they opened up Wall Street the next week or whatever it was, I went back to work, and in the morning meeting, Abby Cohen, who is the strategist and head of research, she said something that really resonated with me. Like, she said, don't worry, New York is a much safer place now than it was before 9/11. And it's true. It's true. There's a lot more surveillance. It hasn't turned into a police state, thank God. And there's been issues with the Patriot Act, et cetera, kind of overdoing it. But, when a crisis occurs, you usually get over-regulation or some sort of regulation. And that's what happened with the Patriot Act. I won't go there, though. Now, when it comes to 2008, it was a dangerous time, man. Like, I remember we were within 24 hours of bank machines not working. And the people and I lived in a place called Burlingame then, and we were fine, whatever. But on the left of me, they foreclosed the house. On the right, they foreclosed as well. And it was scary, man. Like, we were within 24 hours of bank machines not working globally. And, it's as much as we all criticize governmernments, there's a noble intention for governments, right? And I will criticize them. I do often. But I will say that that Ben Bernanke, who was the Federal Reserve chairperson at the time, I think he did a great job saving the U.S. economy. And it was such a fluke, such a big coincidence. But Ben Bernanke, when he was a lot younger and he was doing his PhD at Princeton, he did his PhD in depressionary economics. Thank God for that. Thank God for that. And so it wasn't just him. It was, a lot of people collectively that got us out of this. And basically created the TARP program, where the government bought back a bunch of crappy assets to inject money into the system. And one thing that does piss me off about that whole situation is the U.S. government bailed out the banks. They had to. And then 2 years later, these banks gave their employees record bonuses. And that bugs me, because there's a whole generation of younger people that they're kind of a lost generation. They live at home in their 30s. It's not their fault. And these bankers that pushed us to the brink of disaster got record bonuses. And although I'm definitely a capitalist, if I were a congressman or senator or whatever, governor, I would find a way to come up with a way to massively fine all those investment banks that gave out massive bonuses and put it into a big pool of capital, like $1 trillion or whatever it is. And the proceeds of that pool of capital would go to those that lost their houses. Because middle America got screwed. The average consumer got screwed. And meanwhile, the bankers that pushed us in this disaster got record bonuses, which really bugs me. But things are much better now than they were then. And I don't think we'll ever see another crisis like that ever again. Like your kids or grandkids or great grandkids, depending on how old you guys all are, they're going to ask you, what was it like working or being alive during the Great Recession? It was chaos, man. Like, I remember my mom even called me. My parents live in Canada, but they're snowbirds, which means they live in Florida for half the year. My mom called me and said, honey, should we take our money out of Bank of America? And it was crazy. Like, I remember my analyst in my hedge fund, he was doing work on Smith & Wesson. We ended up buying the stock because I don't think guns should, yeah. But when he was doing his due diligence and checks, guns were sold out everywhere in the country, and so were safes. You couldn't buy a safe anywhere. It was absolute chaos, and Anyway, it pisses me off that people got record bonuses. I don't think that should have been the case, but the rule there, or the lesson there, is that every country is different, but every country has laws regarding how much of your money is safe. And your government, and every country has this, your government will insure a certain amount of money for you in each bank. So in the US, it's over 200 grand. So if you have 500 grand in cash in the US, don't put it all in one bank. Use multiple banks. If you're overseas and the limit is only $10,000, then use different banks just to diversify your assets in general. And for those of you taking my MBA degree program, we're going to talk a lot about how to create a diversified personal portfolio consisting of stocks, bonds, real estate, commodities, so that you have good risk management metrics in place so you're protected. Yeah. And Joe, I'm just smiling. I remember you now. I remember your picture. I haven't seen you in a while, dude. It's been a while. Hope you've been doing well. All right. Next up is, and we gotta wrap this call in a minute or two. I'm so sorry, but I gotta do the MBA call. Let me just scroll through here. All right. Hey, Solly, how are you? So I'm going to go through this really, really quickly. Yeah, Gregory's saying, how many mugs do you have? Yeah. So this is this here is my milkshake from the week, or my shake, whatever, greatest hits. This is water. And this here is just my coffee in my Ember mug, which is garbage. I wish I didn't buy it, but it keeps it kind of warm, so my voice doesn't go to hell in a handbasket. And I have this as well, Throat 37, in case I lose my voice. That's what opera singers use. Yeah. So if you're going to an interview or you're about to give a speech, make sure you have Throat 37 in your bag. I feel like a bad infomercial for products, like on the Truman Show. Yeah. All right, let me go through this quickly. Okay, I'm just going to skim the rest of this really, really quickly. Okay. I love it. Solly, I love your comments, buddy. All right, hold on a second. I'm going to go through this really quickly. I'm going to skim through this, and I got to wrap this up in a minute. I apologize. All right. So, yeah, I'm so sorry, guys. So I see there's tons more questions. If you're in my MBA degree program, just copy your questions and just paste them. That's my alarm. I got to go and paste them again. The call will start at 11:15. And so again, if you're MBA students of mine, just go to the MBA calendar, password protector on our website, whatever, and then just copy your questions, and I'll be there to answer your questions. And then for those of you I have one-on-one meetings with after the call, I'm looking forward to speaking with all of you. So I want to thank you all for your time. And if you want, you guys can also just copy your questions and then just paste them again next week. Unfortunately, I don't have time to answer all of them, but this is a fun call. Thank you. Thank you. And if you subscribe to my vlog, I'll see you mañana, which means I'll see you tomorrow on my vlog. That's mañana is tomorrow in Spanish. If not, God bless you. Have a great weekend. And I will see you all next Thursday and every Thursday at 8 a.m. San Francisco time. Thank you.